Joe.
Is now exiting.
Joe.
Is now joining.
Welcome to the Lethbridge City Council meeting for Monday, November the 30th, 2020. I'm going to begin with the acknowledgement statement. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationships to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We'll now go on to bouquets. Okay, we'll do the roll call first.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Here.
Mayor Spearman.
Here.
Councillor Campbell.
Present.
Councillor Carlson.
Present.
Councillor Kaufman.
Present.
Councillor Croson.
Present.
Councillor Morrow.
Yeah.
Councillor Parker.
Present.
And Acting Mayor Hagan.
Aye.
All present. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to bouquets. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Nothing today, thanks.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. A couple of things just want to mention. Lethbridge has had a pretty good record on doing national competitions when we think about the Theo Tams winning the Canadian Idol, and he's still champion, by the way, because they didn't have one after him. But anyway, also Tara Jean Popovich won So You Think You Can Dance Canada. And now just last week, Christopher Stieg, former Lethbridge Hurricane, two-time Stanley Cup champs. He was in Battle of the Blades with his partner, and he managed to come in third place, which is fantastic. And the good part is that part of his prize money was $15,000, which he's donating to Opakasan here in Lethbridge. So that's outstanding. Also, just want to give my bouquet to the Third Avenue project that was opened up for the rest of the winter time. Still not quite done, but there was a lot of people that needed a lot of patience as we got that going. The underground was absolutely necessary to replace. The underground infrastructure was old, looks good now, and I think once we get used to seeing this space, it'll create a more walkable area as part of downtown vibrancy. So thanks for everyone's patience on that.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Just a reminder to folks, although with the winds and the heat, it hasn't felt much like winter for a little bit. Nikki Yuko, the annual, I think it's the 5th annual Winter Lights Festival, is happening pretty quick. I think they're opening to the public on December 3rd. But I want to remind folks that because of COVID, things are a little different this year. So make sure you check their website. There's a phone number. You need to book your tickets in advance. But I know that it's something that folks look forward to all year. So it's starting pretty quick. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman,
Nothing, Mayor Spearman.
Councillor Morrow,
Nothing.
Councillor Crowson,
Nothing, thank you.
Acting Mayor Higgin,
Nothing today, Mayor Spearman. Thank you.
Councillor Parker.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a bouquet. It's for our assessment department. Our assessment department has been nominated and received an award from the provincial government for being a taxation department with heart. And today we have some the nominees from Lethbridge Elder Abuse Response Network and Canadian Mental Health Alberta South Region. Here I'd like to present Mr. Larry Laverty, the General Manager of our Assessment and Taxation, with this award from the provincial government. We do commend Mr. Laverty and his department for being recognized provincially for their work and empathy with those who are struggling. Thank you. With that, I have a resolution from Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Consent agenda. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council held Monday, November the 16th, 2020 be approved, and that the Mayor and the City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. And further be it resolved that the minutes of the public hearing held Monday, November the 16th, 2020 be approved, and that the Mayor and the City Clerk be authorized to sign the same. Further be it resolved that the City Council receive for information the status of directed resolutions with the following amendments. That City Council defer the date of return of the item changes to CIP process to a meeting of City Council no later than April 30th, 2021. And further be it resolved that City Council receive the following reports as information. Procurement Summary Report for October 2020, Monthly City Council Work Plan Update, and Operational Review Implementation Plan Update. And further be it resolved that City Council give first reading to the following bylaws. Bylaw 6253, 2021 Incentives for Prepayments, Penalty, and Tax Deferral Bylaw. Bylaw 6254, 2021 Residential Assessment and Supplementary Assessment Subclass Bylaw. Bylaw 6256, a bylaw to amend Procedure Bylaw 5411. And Bylaw 6258, bylaw to amend Election Act Bylaw 5803. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Before I entertain any questions from council, Madam Clerk, are all the bylaws coming back to council on the 14th?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. Questions from?
Okay. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Question on the operational review plan and update. First, thank you for providing council with these updates. It's greatly appreciated. On item 10, regarding the capital program, I believe it was management framework and oversight. I noticed that hasn't been started yet. Will that impact the upcoming capital improvement plan that council will be dealing with in the new year?
No, it won't. That was about reviewing the overall process.
Okay, and so that's the overall process after we develop the plan. That'll be how it's managed and what oversight.
That, and it's actually going to look to the future for how we develop the capital program going forward. So it's a piece of work that will not impact this CIP. It'll impact future CIPs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dalton. Appreciate that. Thank you. Nothing else, Your Worship.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Question's been called. All in favor? Are any opposed? That is unanimous. Okay. Now we have a resolution to adopt the agenda. Acting Mayor Higgin, that the agenda of the regular City Council meeting of November the 30th, 2020 be adopted, including all communications as submitted by the City Clerk. City Clerk, are there any amendments?
I do have two amendments. The first one is just a reminder for council with regards to item 811, that's bylaw 6251, that it needs to be brought forward prior to item 5.1, the operating budget. It's initiative A20, or sorry, no, that's a different one. Sorry, it's a bylaw to establish the public notification and advertising. And then also A20, the corporate advertising initiative, it was forwarded from Finance Committee. That will also have to be dealt with at item 5.1, the operating budget. And I believe Councillor Miyashiro has an amendment as well.
Councillor Miyashiro?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman, Madam Clerk. Request to move item 4.3 from presentations to submissions. I think the intent initially was to have this as a submission.
4.3 is the direction from council on a potential amendment to section 14.6, mixed density residential.
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any questions from council on moving 4.3 to 5.2?
Worship, would it be 5.3, or did you want to do it before the operating budget?
5.3. So, okay, we can do 5.3. Anyone from council object? So, does this have to be a motion or?
It's an amendment to the agenda. It's part of the amendments.
Okay.
With my two and Council Miyashiro's, they can all be done together, unless someone opposes it.
Okay, I see no one opposing. So the resolution from Acting Mayor Higgin would be that the agenda of the regular City Council meeting of November 30th, 2020, as amended, be adopted, including all communications as submitted by the City Clerk.
Question.
Okay, question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? There are none. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to presentations. I'm going to invite Mr. Doug Munton to come forward with specifically on the topic of a request for cancellation of tax penalty for College Newco. Is Mr. Munton here? Okay. Okay, please come forward. You have 5 minutes to present.
Okay, Mayor Spearman, City Councilors, I come before you. You have the information before you. Just a point of clarification on this matter. College Newco Inc. owns the property on which College Ford Lincoln operates the Ford Lincoln dealership at 3975 First Avenue South. and the dealership is responsible for all costs associated with the property, including the property taxes. You have the supporting documents outlining our position on this matter, and I would emphasize that this is not asking for a reprieve of any property taxes, but a cancellation of penalties assessed. I would like to add one thing that is not indicated in the documents presented to you. The timeline is such that the June 30th deadline for paying the taxes passed and was not paid until September. In late February of 2017, that's prior to the due date, I suffered a heart attack which resulted in open heart surgery early in March. I was out of commission for well over 6 months. During this time, of course, our property taxes were due June 30th, 2017. And further, as well, during my hospitalization, our bookkeeper at College Ford quit. The problem here is that the proper address, which was used in sending out the property tax notices for the years 2008 through 2020, except for the 2017. As presented in the document supplied, the 2017 tax notice was sent to an erroneous address, then returned to the city on May 23rd, 17, as evidenced by the received stamp, and it was initialed by a city employee by initials KM. You have a copy of the tax notice bearing the received notice. So on September 21st, 2017, 4 months after the tax notice was sent to 3975 First Avenue South, the physical address of the property. Why did it take 4 months for the city to send this notice out? We have been advised by your city solicitor, and I'm no lawyer, but I've been advised that the notices are found on land titles for mailing all notices. But I take question with this in that for 2008 through 2016 and subsequent, all mailings went to Box 997 Lethbridge, my address where taxes have been paid in full each and every year. We've been trying to resolve this penalty situation. Some time ago, we were advised by our solicitor that the manager of tax and assessment office could reverse the penalty, but just recently was advised that only City Council could cancel this penalty. For over 50 years, College Ford Lincoln has been a very good corporate citizen, never once being late on any payment to the city. During this trying and challenging time of COVID, we've had to lay off several people, and it would appear that we'll have to lay off more. The factory, Ford Motor Company, shut down for 3 months. So if you drive by most any car lot in the city, inventory is very, very minimal. We have no product to sell. And of course, with COVID, business is hurting significantly. So I respectfully ask for cancellation of the assessed penalties and applicable interest. Again, we are not asking for any reprieve of property taxes. We have paid our taxes on time every year for 50 years. And this problem of mailing the tax notice to the wrong address, and I'm not sure why that happened, but it went to Box 997 for 208 through 216, and then in 2017, it went to a different address. That mailing was returned to the city, and nobody did anything with it for 4 months, which then resulted in the penalty.
Thank you, Mr. Munton. Questions from council? Acting Mayor Higgin.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman, and thank you very much, Mr. Munton, for your presentation. I just wanted to confirm, I know that you did state it, your taxes have been paid in full. It is only the penalties and interest from this concern that came forward in 2017. But again, to confirm, they have been paid, your taxes have been paid each year for, I think you told me 50 some years. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And immediately upon receipt of the mailing of the address to the physical address where the dealership operates, the very next day, we paid the property taxes. We have never, ever, ever not paid our property taxes on time in over 50 years.
Thank you, Mr. Mutton.
Any further questions from council? Okay, I see no further questions. I'll thank Mr. Munton for his presentation. I have a resolution from Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Request for cancellation of tax penalty for College Newco. Be it resolved that council receive this presentation as information, and further be it resolved that council deny the tax cancellation request of $19,040.09. And further be it resolved that Mr. Munton be thanked for his presentation. Councillor Miyashiro.
I'll just leave it for my colleagues to ask questions to start.
Okay, any questions from members of council? There are none, so, okay. Councillor Higgin?
Is this debate or questions, Mayor Spearman?
This is questions on the resolution.
I do not have any questions. I'll be in for debate.
Okay. Councillor Croson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I have a question for our city manager or designate. Would this set a precedent? Have we done this before, canceled a similar payment in the past, or would this be something new?
Mayor Spearman, through to Councillor Croson, this would, if this was approved, it would certainly set a precedent. This is not something that we've typically done in the past.
Councillor Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is for Mr. Mutton, if he could possibly come back to the microphone.
Okay, Mr. Munton?
Mr. Mutton, first of all, I apologize for your health issue there, and hopefully you're having a speedy recovery. You seem to look well. Are you saying that if you wouldn't have had these health issues and you most likely would have had this paid up on time? Am I correct when I hear that?
I would say so, in that we lost our bookkeeper at the dealership. So the tax notice did not come. I would think if I'd have been on the job, I would have had, I would be knowledgeable to the fact that taxes are due on June the 30th, and they would have been paid. But the issue is here that the tax notice did not come. It was returned to the city. The city acknowledged receiving the erroneous address, and it took them 4 months to get a tax notice to a proper address. Like, in my mind, that just doesn't seem fair at all. If we receive the tax notice, we pay our tax on time, but the notice was received back to the city. It's stamped received, it's initialed by a KM, and I have no idea why it would be sat on for 4 months. If it got back to May 23rd and it was sent out May 31st, the taxes would have been paid.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I could ask someone within the administration, was there any kind of, like, when you saw this letter come back, did you guys put 2 and 2 together in regards to, oh man, we must have sent this to the wrong address, there was an error on our account? Can someone answer that?
Mayor Spearman through to Councillor Parker. I believe Mr. Laverty is on his way back into the council chambers. I'm not able to kind of answer for that specific process.
Okay.
He's on his way. He's just, I see him through the window.
And obviously, you must have heard my question.
Okay. Mr. Laverty, there is a question from Councillor Parker about why, when the tax notice was returned to the city, no effort was made to contact the taxpayer.
Hi, through your worship, when we do receive return notices, we keep them on file. We get hundreds of them. And we're in the middle of tax season, so we get to look at those when we can. The legislation is for us to keep it on file and deem that it's been mailed. So we do attempt to get at them, but there's no guarantee that we can get at everything the second that it comes in, because there's literally hundreds of them that happen.
Okay, so and my follow-up, and I thank you for that answer. If you could allow me to ask one more question to yourself. I just want to make sure I understand the process and policy. So, and they may go hand in hand. When someone doesn't pay or the taxes are not paid and a month goes by, we do not, by our policy, call or anything like that. We don't do any kind of follow-up, do we? All we do is we would send a letter saying interest owing, am I correct? And taxes owing.
Through the chair, we do have a process. As I said, we're receiving payments, and we're at a fairly busy time of the year at that point, so we do have hundreds of return mail items. We keep them on file as per the requirements of the Municipal Government Act, and if we can get to them, we get to them, if we at all can, but there's no guarantees. We're certainly trying to enhance our processes to be able to address more, but again, it's often very difficult to track down individuals in those situations, and there's literally hundreds of reasons for those returns to happen in the first place. So it's a matter of, I don't want to get legislative because I don't want to use that as an excuse, but there's no requirement for us to do anything other than to hold them. So any effort we make is on top of that to try to address it.
Okay. Thank you. Mike, if I may ask a question to Mr. Mutton, if possible. I'm guessing Mr. Mutton's in the room. Mr. Mutton, you're a very astute businessman. You're a very successful accountant. And did it come to you, like, did you kind of like, when you're doing your numbers, you're like, hey, maybe, did we get our tax bill yet? Like, is that question, like, obviously everyone asks that question. As a homeowner, we go, hey, if it's July and I haven't got my tax bill, I go, hey, I haven't got my tax bill. Are you saying that you were kind of out of commission, where you wouldn't have noticed that for a few months?
No, if I had not have had the heart attack and open heart surgery, I'd have been on the job and the taxes would have been paid June 30th. I was in the hospital, I was out of commission, but I think more to the point here, as well as not getting a notice sent to us after the wrong address. Why did we change the address after sending it to Box 997, 2008, right through 2016, so 8 years, and then we bought a piece of property from the city, which they joined the title on. There was some mix-up there about address at that time, but so we got the wrong address because of that, and then not resending resending the tax notice to the proper address. So there's 2 or 3 different problems here that, in my mind, as a taxpayer, it's just not fair at all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Button. Thank you, Mr. Laverty.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you, Mr. Munton, for your presentation. Mr. Laverty, where do we get the addresses from when to send property tax notices? Where do we get that address?
Through your worship, to Councilor Miyashiro, We receive that from Land Titles Office. We have electronic updates every 2 weeks, and we have a policy to use that as the mailing address for anything on file. Again, it's to do with the Municipal Government Act and a best practice.
Well, when there's a purchase of a property, a real property, who files that with land titles, the purchaser or the city, or both?
Well, I think I'd probably leave that for legal, but my understanding is that it would be filed by both parties would be involved in that transaction. Both attorneys, I guess, would be engaged in that process. The title will have been sent to both parties for sure after registration, and that address on title is the one that we use for assessment and taxation purposes.
Mr. Munton, I can empathize with this mistake that happened. Can you tell me how many meetings you've had with people from the assessment office over the years to try to rectify this? Like face-to-face meetings to show them what you have so they can show you what the city has?
I did not have any meetings, but Deirdre from Davidson and Williams had written letters and had conversations over this. And I hear what Mr. Laverty indicates, but if that is the case, why for 2008, for 8 years, did that tax notice goes to box 997? And in Mr. Lowen's response, he said that it reverted back to the old address, but the old address was always box 997. The 511 5th Street South address was an address where our office used to be 2007 and previous. From 2008 through 2016, the tax notice came to box 997, Lethbridge, Alberta. 2017, it was changed. And as I read the documents, and again, I'm no lawyer, but I believe, and I could be corrected, but the city's solicitor sent the title transfer to Land Titles, and they had the wrong address. Our lawyer wrote a letter to the city saying it is the wrong address. It needs to be box 997, and yet the tax notice got mailed to the wrong address.
And that's the address you think they had at Land Titles was the wrong address as well?
No, Land Titles, I think you have the documents. Land Titles was advised to be, the address was box 997.
What year did you purchase that road that we closed?
It started in 15, and I believe finalized in 16.
Councillor Campbell?
Mr. Mutton, sorry, just one more. I want to get the kind of the timeline here, and just knowing that, because you've paid taxes on time for 50 years, knowing that you paid taxes at the same time, what were the conversations that you were having with the company to say, well, if we didn't get our tax notice, we probably should figure out what we owe? And then when you found out that you had some arrears, what was the conversation between, well, maybe we should pay this, and what was your conversation for saying, well, we're not going to pay this and we're not going to pay it for a while? So what was sort of the thinking behind all of that?
Okay, the tax notice was mailed May 23rd, 2017. I was in hospital and out of hospital with heart issues. I didn't get back into the mix until August. The May 23rd mailing to the erroneous address was sent back to the city and received and initialed by a city employee. 4 months later, I'm back on stream a little bit, and immediately upon receiving that tax notice, we paid the taxes. At the time, there was a penalty on there, and we just felt that was totally unfair. It had been mailed to Box 997 forever. Now, all of a sudden, it's mailed to a wrong address. The city was advised, couldn't they have thrown it in the mail to the physical address, College Ford Lincoln, or checked wherever it, and all through those documents you have, the physical address is 3975 First Avenue South, where we're located. If it got to there, it would have got paid. If it had got to Box 997, it would have got paid. But the 511 Fifth Street South, that's now a dentist's office. I know they have lots of money, but they aren't going to pay our taxes.
I guess my biggest question is, are you the guy that says, okay, we got to pay our taxes on June 30th, so let's do this? Or is there someone else who said, by the way, taxes are due? Or did that just not come up? There's nobody else. I know, and I'm sorry that you were sick, but is there someone else who could have said, well, we better do this because this happens every year at this time?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But I mentioned, while I was in the hospital, the bookkeeper at the dealership quit, and he's gone. But in saying all that, whether the bookkeeper's there or not, I'm the one in charge of College Nuco and College Ford Lincoln, the tax paying, whether it be city taxes or federal taxes or GST or whatever, that falls on my shoulders.
I guess, and just no one thought to say, by the way, it's June 30th. Nobody other than yourself.
Well, the bookkeeper would. He quit.
Yep. Right.
I was in the hospital. I'm
right.
Not really thinking about property taxes while I'm...
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Munton, if you could stay at the mic just for a few more questions. So it's now 2020, and this happened in 2017. And the issue wasn't resolved in 2017. So then the tax bill comes for 2018, and it's got a penalty on it. But you just paid the current year taxes again?
Yes, sir.
And you did the same in 2019?
Yes, sir.
And you did the same in 2020?
Yes, sir.
And your lawyer didn't tell you that the process, or explain the process of paying taxes, that if there's outstanding balances, any payments get applied to those first?
No, sir. And the tax
So
notice...
this ended up compounding for 4 years, right?
The tax notice doesn't reflect that either. The tax notice reflects the payment of the property taxes, and the outstanding penalty kind of sits there. She was the one that told me that the assessment office deals with these penalties, and she corresponded with that department and tried to resolve it, but it never got resolved. But just to be clear, we have paid our taxes for over 50 years on time. The penalty is what we take issue with.
Thank you. Mr. Laverty, could you provide clarification on that point? What happened? Each year they pay what's due, but the original penalty amount was not paid, so how did that impact the amount that's owed?
Through your worship, I'll try to explain that. The first year that this occurred, obviously there was a mix-up with the addressing or whatever there was, but the taxes were due June 30th. That did not get paid, so a penalty was applied on July 1st, and then a subsequent penalty on August 1st and September 1st. At that point, the tax amount was paid, but the outstanding amount was not paid. So in future years, when tax payments are paid, we have a legal requirement under the Municipal Government Act that money has to go to arrears first and has to be paid off first. So what's happened is it's just led to an ever-increasing, because the payments made of what the taxes would have been had there been no penalties, but it doesn't take into account the penalties. So what's happened is it's grown from, I think, just over $8,000 in July 2017 to about $19,000 right now. So I think that's the issue, that it keeps growing each year, this problem, because we have no choice but to place money towards arrears first, and of course that leaves an outstanding balance in the tax account, and then penalties are applied.
Okay, thank you very much. Acting Mayor Higgin?
Thank you. Question for Mr. Mutton again.
Okay.
Mr. Mutton, I hope you're at the mic there. Sorry, I can't see, but the question that I have is, if the address was still the same address, taken into account that you were hospitalized and there was a change in accounting there at the dealership, if the address was still correct, although you were in the hospital and it was still going to box 997, I think you said, you would have received that. And would have that changed if the address had not changed? You still would have received it, and someone, even if you were in the hospital, would have been aware of this happening, correct?
Very definitely.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Can I comment on, I think the penalty was like $11,000. And then, of course, interest has been added to the point now that it's $18,000.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from members of council? Councillor Higgin, you have your hand up. Is that okay? It's down. Hey, no further questions from council? Hello?
Sorry, I was just going to ask, when it comes to time to do an amendment, I just would like to amend.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now if there's no further questions, we're on to debate. The resolution has been read. It's sponsored by Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, would you like to open?
Mayor Spearman, I'll leave it to my colleagues to open debate. Thank you.
Okay, we're now in debate. Councillor or Acting Mayor Higgin, did you want to bring forward your amendment?
Yes, I'd like to bring amendment forward that council cancels the penalty and interest amount of $19,040.09.
I'm going to ask if that's an amendment or if that actually is in opposition to the actual motion.
Can Councillor Hagan repeat that, just so I know for sure?
Well, I know that if this goes through, and maybe I can explain why. If this goes through, it's still, even if it's denied or if we vote against this, there's no resolution to put forward to cancel it. So I need to know, do I need to put a resolution in after, or can I actually amend this to say City Council cancel the penalties and interest of $19,040.09?
So
maybe you can help me with that.
So, Acting Mayor Hagan, that would be contrary to the motion that Deputy Mayor Miyashiro put forward, and that states that council denied the tax cancellation request of $19,040.09. So what you would do is vote against it.
If I voted against it, could I bring a resolution forward right after?
To state,
I think that resolution would be directly opposite the resolution that
correct.
was previously considered.
Thank you.
A 6-month clause or something, I believe.
Okay, so we're still debating the resolution from Councillor Miyashiro. Debate? Councillor Higgin?
Thank you. I will not be supporting this. We've already heard from Mr. Mutton that this particular business has served our community for over 50 years and has also paid taxes regularly for that time for over 50 years. Now, I also heard that if the address was correct and it was sent to where it was being sent to previously, that this payment would have been made whether or not Mr. Munton was in the hospital or changing of staff, etc. Had it come to the correct address, it would have came to somebody's attention. So for that reason and many others, I will not be supporting this motion.
Okay. Does any other member of council wish to speak? I will support the motion. This has taken 4 years before it got to council. So the interest charges have, depending on who you listen to, have more than doubled or maybe almost doubled because the issue hasn't been resolved to this point. It would be precedent setting to cancel the penalty. So that creates some risks for the city going forward. So on this occasion, I have a lot of sympathy for Mr. Munton, but if a payment had been made and then appealed in the first year, the extent of the unpaid penalties would not have reached 19,000. So the issue is not solely because of the city. So for that reason, I can't support canceling the full 19,000, and I support the resolution. Does any other member of council wish to speak? I see none. I'll ask Councillor Miyashiro to close. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you very much, Mayor Spearman. I just really have to say, we've heard from city administration, we've heard from Mr. Munton. Based on all of that, I would hope that my colleagues would support this motion. Call the question.
Question's been called. Can we use a roll call, please?
Mayor Spearman.
In favor.
Councillor Campbell.
In favor.
Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor?
Councillor Croson.
In favor.
Councillor Morrow.
Opposed?
Councillor Parker.
In favor.
Acting Mayor Higgin.
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Favor.
Carries 7-2.
Okay, the resolution carries 7-2. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Munton. Okay, it's 2:36. Do we wish to carry on with presentations? I'll continue unless there was... Go ahead.
Let's do one more.
One more? Okay, well, moving on to 4.2. Facility Asset Rationalization Plan. I believe the presentation is from Ms. Carrie Nightingale. Thank you. Please proceed, Ms. Nightingale.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Today's presentation about the asset rationalization implementation. The intent of this presentation is to provide Council with an update on where we're at and what we're proposing for a schedule to evaluate facilities. So at this time, no Council decision is required. If you can move to the next slide, please. So just to refresh everyone's memory, when we were presenting back in the summer, our presentation included this pie chart, which indicated that the large portion of the facilities by area are comprised of the recreation and culture buildings as well as the community service buildings. So with that in mind, those are the two categories that we focused on for the first round. Next slide, please. Again, to refresh everyone's memory, the process that was approved for the asset rationalization framework is indicated on this slide. Step one would be to identify the facilities for review, which is part of what we have done to date. followed by identifying the stakeholders, gather and analyzing the information, evaluating and scoring the facilities, and then it would result in a recommended action to council. One point to note, number 3, the gather and analyze information. This step is a labor-intensive step for administration, and it did factor into how we scheduled the groups of facilities later on in this presentation. Next slide, please. Step 4 was to evaluate and score the facilities. Again, as a reminder, the evaluation and scoring consists of 2 types of criteria. The first criteria would be the functional. Criteria includes location, utilization, functionality, and versatility. Next slide, please. With those 4 components, we would come up with a weighting based on the facility type. For example, if we're doing all the fire stations or all the arenas, weighting for those 4 factors might vary depending on what's important to that facility type. Then we would score on those functional factors, and ultimately we would have a functional score resulting from that exercise. The second part of the evaluation process would be the financial factors. This includes operating cost and the life cycle requirements. Both of those would result in numbers that would be reflected as a cost per building value. Once we had those 2 numbers, the functional score and the financial impact, we would plot them on a chart. Next slide, please. And this chart would allow us to plot the facilities in the different quadrants, which would then help us decide on an appropriate action based on the scoring. Next slide, please. Following that exercise, we would provide a report that would include the building scoring matrices, financial functional graph results, and the recommendations from administration. Next slide, please. So in order to select the groups of facilities, we considered administrative priorities, competing workloads and whatnot, and this was the result of that exercise. We spoke with a number of stakeholders internally to decide where we should start and how we would proceed. So in January of 2021, we're proposing to start with the picnic shelters, followed by social services and miscellaneous in February and March. Then you'll see there's a bit of a gap there in April. An explanation for that gap would be surrounding some of the information gathering that we need to do. One of the financial factors was the life cycle impact. In order for us to start tackling the larger facilities like the arenas and pools, we needed a little bit more time in order to be able to update audits or complete audits in some of the larger facilities so that we have the most current data going into this exercise. And to that end, Facility Services has hired a new asset inspector, and he will be beginning with us next week, and we're hoping to get our process updated and ready for those arenas to start in May of 2021. Following the arenas in May and June, we go on to the pools for July, August, then the fire halls in September and October, followed by some of the baseball facilities. And then the community, other community facilities starting in the new year in 2022. Next slide, please. A breakdown of what's included in those different categories for the picnic shelters. It would be the Rotary Picnic Shelter, John Martin, Elks, social services, miscellaneous buildings. This would include the Scouts, Girl Guides building, Bowman, the homeless shelter, Westminster Pool and Community Center. LSCO, this would be the full Fritz Memorial Center and the animal shelter. Arenas would include ATB Phase 1, NMAX, Nicholas Sharon, Logan Boulay, Henderson, Labor and Civic. Next slide, please. Pools would include Nicholas Sharon Pool, Stan Seawick Pool, Henderson Pool buildings, Westminster Pool, which is included twice on this list because of the two components of that facility. And then ATB Center Phase 2, which is the aquatic side. Then the fire halls would include the 4 existing fire hall facilities and associated buildings, as well as the new fire hall number 5, which is should be coming online in late spring next year. Baseball facilities would include Lloyd Nolan, Spitz Stadium, and Softball Valley. And then the remaining major community facilities that would be undertaken in 2022 would include Genevieve Yates Memorial Center, CASA, the Multicultural Center, SAG, and the Galt Museum. Next slide. And that's it. Any questions?
There are questions. Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you, Ms. Nightingale, for the presentation. A question on the presentation, and maybe it also relates to the policy. And council did pass a policy on this, correct?
That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you for that. It seems with the functional criteria, it makes a lot of sense from a dollar and cents point of view. But here's my question. Is there any community input? And this is why I'm asking about this, but also the policy, because I don't see it in there either, and that might have been a gap. Or is that simply going to be a function left to council to put that community hat on when all is said and done? Or throughout the process, is there an opportunity for the community to provide some a community layer, I guess, as such?
Right. Councillor Carlson through Mayor Spearman. Mr. Westerson, can you go back to slide number 3, please? So in the framework that we had presented in the summer, and as you've stated, it was adopted as part of the policy, what we are looking at from our lens is just the facility itself and not the service that is being offered from that facility in order to clarify and focus the efforts of the asset rationalization process. So the service rationalization or service considerations or community considerations definitely could factor into the decision-making process. It's just not part of what we're presenting.
Okay, thank you. So I'll mull on that. Maybe that's the policy that needs to be tweaked a bit. Thank you.
Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you, Ms. Nightingale, for your presentation today. I'm really impressed with the work that your department's put together with this. A couple questions. One, I see in the baseball category, you're looking at the big ones, Nolan, Spitz, and Softball Valley. Are you looking at things like Canola Harvest Park as well at Dave Elton, as well as Yoshinaka Stadium that's part of North Little League? They're less well known, but they certainly have a lot of use, and I think there were some wear issues with both of those as well. I know they don't have the same kind of facility in Southwest Little League, and they just got a new concession and washroom structure last year, I think. So I'm just wondering if I'm just asking if you thought of looking at that, not saying you have to.
Yes, Councillor Miyashiro through Mayor Spearman. Those facilities do have a smaller facility footprint, I would guess. Like they're comprised mostly of stands and the baseball infrastructure itself. We could certainly look at them. It's just that they would be a slightly different concept than the other ones. So we can definitely look at those when we're looking at the baseball facilities.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you, Ms. Nightingale, for the information. I really, really appreciate what you folks are doing on this asset rationalization work. makes it much more fact-based and less nebulous. So thank you for this. On slide 3, you've got identify stakeholders, and I know I'm going to regret saying this, especially if we agree to this and you're calling me constantly in February, but would City Council be one of the stakeholders involved with each of these?
Councillor Kaufman through Mayor Spearman, the presentation that we had provided identified all kinds of stakeholders, including potentially user groups and community members as well as council. The whole gamut was presented there. However, each of those stakeholders' role in the process would be very specific to what we were trying to accomplish in each step. So for instance, some of the stakeholders like the user groups and community groups, they may be engaged to provide us some of the information that we need to gather in step 3. And at this point, I am anticipating that the evaluation and scoring of the facilities would be done by an administrative group, with the recommended actions going to council, at which point council's stake in the game would be engaged.
Okay, all right, thank you, appreciate that. Slides 4 and 5 deal with sort of the functional criteria. Are these facilities judged in isolation on their own merits, or are they judged comparatively?
So Councillor Kaufman through Mayor Spearman, they are judged comparatively in that we have grouped them as we've shown on the schedule, so that when we are looking at fire stations, for instance, we're comparing fire stations to fire station. The reason for approaching it that way was, for instance, something like location on a fire station may have a higher weighting than it would on a different building category. So we do look at the buildings by group based on their purpose or service delivery.
Okay, thank you. Final question, recognizing that CIP is coming up and your department is quite involved in terms of getting a lot of this information, or a lot of information together. Well, it's probably easier for you to be doing things collectively the way you proposed on the schedule. Will you be addressing any of the facilities that may appear in the CIP for renovation or renewal prior to CIP, so that council would have that information? Or so thinking, you know, we've mentioned Fritz Sick, which I see is July, August. There may be some other things coming up that I'm unaware of. Is there going to be an evaluation of those particular facilities prior to, or will it be done when it's done?
Mr. Kaufman through Mayor Spearman, the Fritz Sick asset rationalization process currently is scheduled to be done in February, March. So for that facility in particular, it's possible that you will have some additional information to help inform some decisions during CIP deliberations. The other ones were just scheduled as we could complete them based on other planning activities of various stakeholders and other workload pressures.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I saw LSCO and did not read in the parentheses, so my mistake on that. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Spearman.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from council? I see none. I'll thank Ms. Nightingale, and we'll deal with the resolution. I have a resolution from Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Facility Asset Rationalization Plan. Be it resolved that administration proceed with implementing the Facility Asset Rationalization Plan and preliminary schedule as outlined in the proposed schedule and in accordance with the process noted in the Facility Divestiture Policy CC 62. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I'll open it up for questions from my colleagues.
Are there any questions I see none. On to debate.
No open.
Well, clearly this is something that the city needs to do. It's important work to do an assessment to make sure assets are utilized optimally. And so the rationalization plan basically assesses what we need and the condition of these assets. So every so often this work has to be done, and I commend Ms. Nightingale for her work. So I will be supporting the resolution. Anyone else wish to speak? I see no one. Councillor Miyashiro, Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you again, Mayor Spearman. Thank you very much to Ms. Nightingale and her team for pulling this together. This is exactly what council asked for when we looked at the rationalization process. I have nothing more to add. This is a very comprehensive plan with the schedule, and I ask my colleagues to support this.
Question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, it's 2:44. Council wish to take a break till 3 o'clock? Okay. Okay, we'll resume at 3 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock. We'll resume the city council meeting. Okay. I have a resolution from, this is bylaw 8.1.1, brought forward by Councillor Kaufman. Bylaw 6251, a bylaw of the City of Lethbridge to establish alternate methods of public notification and advertisement. I think I'm going to pass this over to Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, and I'm going to excuse myself for this item.
I too, Mr. Mayor, will be excusing myself as well, and I'm going to explain the main reason why.
Yeah.
I was sent some emails, or rather a letter that was going to be with some information in regards to an opinion on this, and I didn't realize until actually I finished the letter what the main focal point or the main reason of the letter, and I felt that since all members of council should be privy to the same information, it puts me in an awkward position. And then under the MGA, if I'm privy to information that my colleagues may not have, I'm going to excuse myself since they weren't allowed to read it.
Yeah. I'll be excusing myself for the same reason. The letter was never made public, and I had read the letter, and I made the mistake of forwarding it. Councillor Parker read it, so I myself will excuse myself for this item. So thank you.
Just point of order for a moment. I believe information was received from the city solicitor saying that he didn't believe this letter should impact our deliberation of this bylaw at all. Is that the direction, Mr. Solicitor? Or am I mistaken?
If we're all talking about the same communication, I offered the opinion that if council wanted, they could re-advertise and hold another public hearing and make any communication they've received public, and that would cure any defect. I wasn't convinced that there was a tremendous risk hearing that opinion, but there is some risk, and it's up to individual council members to make that judgment. So,
thanks for that. All right, so we have two council members have recused themselves from this discussion. We have second reading. Oh, I have more stuff. Second reading of the bylaw, and I'll go through really quickly. Bylaw 8.11, be it resolved that bylaw 6251, bylaw of the City of Lethbridge to establish alternate methods of public notification and advertising be given second reading. I do have proposed amendments from Councillor Kaufman. Do you have those, Mr. Westerson? Can we get those on the screen, please? Do I have a second? Councillor
Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Carlson, are you seconding this?
Sorry, no, I had my hand up when two of our colleagues excused themselves, but I'm not sure if that's visible on the screen. I was just wondering, was there any thought given to reholding a public hearing, or is it okay just to move forward with the conflicts declared?
Well, personally, I don't think we need to reopen a public hearing. I don't think there is enough information from what I gathered from Mr. Lowen's explanation. There isn't enough to provide the kind of for or against argument that might sway council either way. My loose interpretation, sorry, Mr. Lowen. Unless a member of council wants to bring this forward, this does impact our budget discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hagan?
When could I do the amendment, I guess, after we vote on this amendment then?
Yeah, we have to bring in this one first, thanks.
Thank you.
So we have an amendment on the floor. I need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Croson. Seconded by Councillor Croson. Councillor Kaufman, open for questions.
I'll open for questions.
Okay. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you for questions. Thank you through Deputy Mayor, through you to the mover, Councillor Kaufman. And thank you for sending this out. I didn't have a chance to read it until just now, so I'm not sure when you sent it. The changes being contemplated here in the amendment, how does that impact the budget reductions that were proposed? If at all.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Carson. And I apologize to my colleagues. I did not send this out earlier today, as was my objective, so I do apologize for that. Based on the presentation from Ms. Crisanti and Mr. Westerson, plus feedback during that presentation from Ms. Gehring, I believe this affects it at all. Ms. Gehring had talked about there would be a continuation of print advertising. This is just about ensuring that what we're advertising is, in my opinion, what I'm hearing from the public that they're usually looking for, and it's usually relating to land matters. That's what Part 17 of the Municipal Government Act is. And then or relating to development permits as identified under the land use bylaw. We do have some reference to advertising in the land use bylaw. It's about keeping the information simple, very plain language, but having the municipal address plus a contact person at the city that can be reached, since not everybody in our community is necessarily wired in. And then providing for at least once the announcement going in, again, leaves some discretion in terms of what's being advertised and when it's being advertised, but at least prior to 2 weeks for the hearing. So it, based on the information I received, should not affect the budget adversely.
Okay, so thank you. So you've asked for that information and you've been provided confirmation that this won't be impacting the budget reduction initiative.
No, I've not. I extrapolated that from the presentation that was provided and the questions that members of council, myself specifically, had asked around continuation of existing processes.
Okay, thank you. I guess just because we are going to be amending the budget later today, or approving the budget, is there someone in the through the city manager or his designate that can confirm that, just that we are ensured that we have good numbers going into budget approval?
Mr. Hawkins?
Yeah, to members of council, the amendment, if it's passed as presented, will result in some additional costs and won't result in the same savings that was contemplated in the budget reduction initiative that was presented to Finance Committee this week. I think it would be hard to predict at this particular point, depending on activity, what the savings would be. Right now, that budget reduction is not factored in, as I understand it, to the overall savings to be contemplated by council later on this afternoon. My recommendation is, if this is passed, we will endeavor to change processes, skinny up, tighten up our advertising requirements and accrue some kind of savings. And I think it'll end up being reported as a surplus later in the year once we have real experience. I think that would be cleaner than trying to predict at this point what an actual systemic change to the budget should be at this particular time based on this amendment.
Thank you.
Questions? Councillor Kaufman, open for debate.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think my response to Councillor Carlson would be good enough for an opening.
Okay, further debate from council? I see none. Councillor Kaufman, to close on this amendment.
Thank you. If members are uncomfortable with particular aspects of this, I would encourage them to certainly ask for a motion to divide. Otherwise, these are tweaks that, in my opinion, certainly ensure that we continue to communicate with the public in the way that they are currently understanding it to be. We can certainly transition over the next budget cycle, and as Mr. Hawkins identified, find savings, find opportunities, and I think that these will still permit us to meet the objectives of this particular bylaw, which is to expand the way we engage with our community. Call the question.
Question's been called. Are there any opposed to the proposed amendments?
Yes.
Call the question by roll call, please.
Councillor Campbell.
In favor.
Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor.
Councillor Croson.
In favor.
Councillor Morrow.
Opposed?
Acting Mayor Hagan.
Opposed?
And Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Carries 4-3.
Going back to the main motion with the amendment. So we have, first of all, be it, well, it's actually what the amendment is. You just included everything in there. Mr. Kaufman, do you want to open on the second reading of the entire amended bylaw?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I understood Acting Mayor Hagan may have an amendment as well.
Yes, sorry, thank you. Acting Mayor?
Yes, I would actually like to pose an amendment, and I don't know the wording, so I'd need some help, City Clerk, on this, that we do actually have another public hearing on this. So I don't know if it is to cancel this current public hearing, or I don't know what the wording would be on that, but I just think that in light of some of the different information that has come in, some discussions over budget talk as well, this particular amendment from Councillor Kaufman coming in, without really being able to review it and get a better understanding, I would ask that we actually postpone this public hearing, or not postpone, but have another public hearing started on this.
I'll let the city solicitor comment, but my understanding is that for amendments, it has to be kind of drastically different from the main motion. So I'm not sure this isn't different enough to have a public hearing, but I'll let Mr. Lowen weigh in.
Perhaps the councillor could clarify. Are you suggesting that you'd like to hold a second public hearing on the bylaw and its proposed amendments and allow public to comment on them again?
Yes, that's correct. Just to get more public feedback, and yes, that's exactly what you said.
I think that could happen at any time before final reading, if that was the will of council.
Councillor Hagan, or Acting Mayor Hagan, did you get that from the city solicitor?
Yes. So we would reopen. My understanding then, from what I'd heard, that we could reopen, get more public feedback, but that would actually put it back to a first reading. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it wouldn't put it back to first reading. You would just have to re-advertise, follow those rules, and you could have a second public hearing and then continue on with the readings process at that point. If you want.
Thank you. That would be sufficient. Yeah, that would be sufficient. Thank you.
Get that up on the screen, please. Acting Mayor, can you see what's up on the screen?
I can. I'm just reading it here now. Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for the amendment?
Yes, Joe.
Councillor Morrow? Mayor Hagan, take questions or open? Or open for questions?
Open for questions, sure.
Are there questions from council on the amendment? Councillor Carlson.
Thank you. Through you to the mover. It's not an amendment, it's a resolution.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'm questioning the wisdom of or the need for a second public hearing. I believe we just heard from that this isn't actually much of a change to what was proposed. So I'm wondering the wisdom for a second public hearing. We followed process. I think we had 2 responses. What's the thoughts on having a second kick at the can on this?
Well, we have received a lot of emails, and obviously we have not opened them for the reason that we keep our information, as all members of council have the same information. I would like to have that information that's been received that we have not been able to look at prior to making a decision on this and going to another reading.
Okay, thank you. I hadn't seen all these emails, so I'm not sure where they came to or if they were just to you directly.
There has been information that has been in the Herald as well, which is somewhat concerning to me, in that obviously when reading the Herald, where do you stop reading when they're discussing issues about this particular bylaw? And so it would just open it up to be much more transparent and be able to have a better understanding when we make a decision.
Thank you. Final question on that then. So if we have a second public hearing, members of council will not be open to the exact same letters to the editor, or I'm not sure what information my colleagues were getting. So I'm not sure how we're going to change that between another public hearing and a vote unless we go to it immediately.
That I can't answer that for you. I just know that there's a lot of information out there that we are not to read and hopefully did not read, but I would like to have that information prior to making a decision.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor Carlson?
Oh, sorry. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Q, do I have any other questions from council on the resolution? Seeing none, Acting Mayor, would you like to open for debate?
I'll wait for closing.
Does anyone on council wish to debate? I see none. Councillor Acting Mayor Hagan to close, please.
I think in answer to the questions, the reason for this, it's just a much more transparent process. We'll get the information that has been out there, being able to read it, better understand it, and I guess first off, read it and wonder why or if there's any concerns, and make an educated decision after hearing the information provided.
Thank you. I'd like to call the question by roll call, please.
May I add to the amendment that A20 then be also referred? We wouldn't be able to deal with A20 at the budget today because of this, so.
Certainly.
The treasurer would like to make a comment.
Deputy Mayor Sherrill, I think that's okay, given that the proposed amendment does not, would require some additional information gathering that we wouldn't include it in the budget at this point in time, and any savings that we incurred would just result in a surplus.
Thank you. So Acting Mayor Hagan, what is being added at the end of your resolution is that budget reduction initiative A20 be referred to a future meeting of City Council after the public hearing. We have a...
that is correct.
Okay. Question on the floor. Call the question by roll call, please.
Councillor Carlson. Councillor Carlson? Councillor Kaufman?
In favor?
Councillor Croson,
In favor.
Councillor Morrow,
Favor?
Acting Mayor Hagan,
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro,
Opposed.
Councillor Campbell,
Opposed?
Councillor Carlson.
Opposed.
Carries 4-3.
That being said, before we do the third reading, we go back up to Councillor Kaufman's original amendment, or sorry, amended bylaw reading for the second reading. Get that up on the screen, please. With all of his amendments.
I believe we can't do second reading as amended until we have this
Sorry,
public
yeah.
hearing.
Right.
So that would get postponed.
On the amendment. Or did we vote on the amendment already? Oh, so we're done this then for
So the
today.
2 amendments did carry, so they'll be included in the advertised bylaw,
Thank you.
and it'll come back.
Hit this one day.
Probably, when do you think, in a month, or Mr. Hawkins?
January. It'll be January before we're back for a public hearing.
Guess we'll advertise that in print media too then. All right, thank you. Next item, we better call the others back.
I'm back.
Thanks, Ryan. They just went to get the mayor.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to 5.1, the budget itself. Resolution? Thank you. I have a resolution from Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, amendment of the 2019 to 2022 operating budget, that Council adopt the Finance Committee's recommendations to amend the 2019 to 2022 operating budget as provided in Attachment 3. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I'd like to thank my colleagues and city administration for the hard work that we all put in last week to reach a 0% increase in 21 and 22. I think we did it with the best intentions for the community with the least impact on services and people. I'll open for questions.
Questions from council? Councillor Croson?
I actually have an amendment, not a question.
Okay, we'll come to that. Are there any questions at this point? Acting Mayor Hagan?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Yes, I was just curious to know, and a question for the city's city treasurer. I think we've heard this before, that this must be passed either today or at our next council meeting in 2 weeks. And if not, it would be a special meeting, but it needs to be passed prior to January 1. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, yes, Councillor Hagan. There is technically a budget in place for January. If there wasn't one approved, you have to do an interim one. So it would be my recommendation that it is approved before the beginning of January.
Thank you. And I do have an amendment, but I don't know if that comes later. I think Councillor Croson does as well.
Yeah, that comes in debate. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to debate. And I do have a written amendment from Councillor Croson that City Council maintain the 0% tax increase per the resolution of 16 November 2020 and use the remaining tax savings determined for the 2021 budget year as determined during the Finance Committee budget deliberations to support social programs, housing initiatives, and the vulnerable during the pandemic. And that City Council direct the City Manager to report back by the end of February 2021 with a plan for how to best use this money to support the aforementioned programs, services, and initiatives. Councillor Crowson, do you have a seconder or is one needed? It's in writing. Okay, it's in writing. Those on the phone, can you see it on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we don't need a seconder because it has been submitted in writing. Councillor Crowson, please speak to your amendment.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. One of the things I know my goal has been throughout the recovery period, and I think it's the goal of my colleagues, is a balanced approach. We want to support businesses, we want to support homeowners. We also want to support those who are most vulnerable through this recovery program. And we know that having a 0% tax increase would support businesses and homeowners. But because of the work we did last week in the budget deliberations, we also have the opportunity to support those who are marginalized and most needed during this time. As my colleagues will also remember from the KPMG report, we spend less on social programs per capita than any of the other communities that were studied. And yet we have some of the largest social issues of any of the communities. And I would have to think, and I'm sure my colleagues will realize, that those two are inextricably linked. With our low per capita payment, our funding of social programs, we have issues. And we know from the work being done by our department that there was a lot of groups that came forward that we couldn't fund, and there's a lot of need out there. And this could support a lot of groups if this was passed. And so I would like to hope that my colleagues will support this. And I'll open it for questions or debate.
Okay, questions. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman, and thank you, Councillor Crowson, for bringing this up. Can you tell us what money you're talking about that we're going to spend on this?
If you look at our budget, we have a minus 1.44% that we're bringing forward with your resolution for next year. So it would be a negative tax increase, and then there'd be a 1.44% increase in 2022. If we take it forward as a 0% tax increase, that leaves all of that 1.44% that we are in the negative, which, and City Treasurer can correct me, I would imagine is about $2 million.
Did our bylaw that we passed state that there'd be, or a resolution, there'd be no tax increase for 2022?
It did not. It only focused on 2021, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Just, I guess, through the mover to the city manager, is this something you're good with and able to do?
If this was the will of council, we're certainly able to do it, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you. My question to the mover is, how do you determine what organizations or what groups are going to get it?
Again, that is the city manager. It would go back to our community services department. They would, they have the plan in place for how they made the determinations for what groups got grants. And I would expect that our staff and administration would look back at their plan and make determinations that way through the plan we already have in place.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Crowson. My second question, through the city manager, probably to the city treasurer, if this resolution or this amendment wasn't to be adopted, where would that extra money and savings go to?
Mayor Spearman, through to Councillor Parker. So I just want to get some clarity about what's being proposed here, just so I am sure I understand what's the intention.
Yeah, use this opportunity to ask the question as well. Yep,
okay. So based on what was decided last week, the 2021 tax decrease is a negative 1.4%, and the 2022 was a tax increase of 1.4%. So there are certainly some options for council to consider. The intention, if this resolution was not to pass, it would be my recommendation that we average the 2 years for 2021 and 2022 to be 0 in both years. If this resolution was to pass, then it's approximately $2.17 million would then be allocated towards the programming that Councillor Crowson is bringing forward.
Now, would that be a pressure into the following year? Because you were planning on using that that extra money for the next year. Am I correct on that?
So if this resolution was to pass, Councillor Parker, there would be a 0% tax rate change based on municipal portion, assuming, again, obviously all this gets passed and approved by City Council. That would be a 0 in 2021 and a 1.4% tax increase in 2022. If this resolution was not... Okay.
Okay. You know, if this resolution was passed, or this amendment.
That's correct. So it would be 0 and then 1.4% pressure.
Thank you very much.
If I may also just clarify that the intention of this resolution is on a one-time basis. This isn't intended to be ongoing.
Well, one-time basis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed that. Did you say it would be ongoing?
Would not be.
Not be. Councillor Crowson, I understand what you want to do here. I think we need to allow the new funding model for the CWSS and our housing strategy to be implemented. That funding starts on January 1st of this year, and there are some differences from previous years in terms of the services being provided and funded by the city through community and social development. I don't have a problem looking at if you want to use $22 in 2022, but I believe we need to let that process play out for the funded organizations for 2021, at least for the first 3 quarters, so we can see that we can have some determination if there's some success of those programs or not, and if the city needs to look at other things. We can be more flexible that way, but I'm not sure, in light of what's been funded, how you're going to do a deep dive and fund a bunch of things that the funding sources might not allow for. So is that, are you willing to let that happen?
With respect, Councillor Miyashiro, most of the money that we had brought before us in phase 1 and phase 2 were determined to go to very specific programs, right? OSSI, FCSS, etc. This money would be city money, and we could use it to fund programs that would not have been eligible for that other funding, for those other funding sources. And again, we have the plan in place now. And so I don't think it would affect the funding that has already gone out. It would just expand where we could put funding and find other ways to support programs in our community.
Thank you.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you to the mover for bringing this forward. I think we spent an entire week last week, just a couple of days ago, going through the budget with an eye to what I really felt was an inaugural process of priority-based budgeting, where we looked at everything with an eye to what we could live without, but what was very important to the community and should be invested in or even strengthened. Would this amendment, would it go to achieving any of council's priorities that we've set, specifically maybe in our strategic plan or in any of our planning work that we've done this term?
Well, housing has certainly been one of our goals in our strategic plan. And we know that when you're looking at things like housing, some of the research I've done is that having appropriate and good housing actually has an impact on crime rate, etc. So it also can make our community safer if we actually tackle the social issues and get to the root causes of some of the problems we have. And so I believe absolutely we'd be attacking and looking at some of those things that have been on the minds of many of members of council if we actually get into putting the money where it can do the best good.
Okay, thank you for that. Question on process, because it's kind of confusing. Maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to perhaps city manager or city treasurer. Can you explain it, whether we amend this budget resolution or not? Our community will see a 0% in 2021, correct?
Mayor Spearman through to Councillor Carlson. Yes, so the 2021 would be 0 if whether this resolution was passed or not. It's just a question of the impact on 2022.
So I guess in thinking about that, is this amendment something that, if it fails, could be looked at over the next 6-8 months with good planning in place, and the 2022 budget could still be amended to incorporate this? What are the challenges to doing it that way rather than the way that Councillor Crowson is contemplating it? Will it impact at all collecting or setting the tax rate for 2021, this notice or this amendment?
I think it would just cause some uncertainty in terms of how we report out 2022, requiring some directions in terms of an average of 0 over both years, or a 0 and a 1.4% in 2022.
Okay, I think I understand. So will we be setting the tax rate at 0 for this year, and that will give us the 1.44 extra to fund the 0 in 2022? So I think I've answered my own question. Thank you.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. To the mover, is the intent of your motion then for the first part of it to be in effect fait accompli, or is it possible for council to review what is provided by the city manager and offer amendments or suggestions at that time as well?
I would be fine either way. My goal here is to find some money to do the social programs and housing initiatives that we know are important in our community. And so if there is another way of achieving that same goal, I'm amenable to looking at that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Or thank you, Mayor Spearman.
Okay. Acting Mayor Higgin.
I'm in for debate.
Any further questions of Councillor Crowson with respect to her amendment?
Yes.
Councillor Campbell?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's Joe.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Joe, go ahead, Joe.
Councillor Morrow?
After you, Councillor Campbell, you were probably first. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I just have to get this through my head here, and I apologize for not really grasping this, because our original resolution is that we're getting 0. Well, that our net tax increase for the next 2 years is 0. Correct. Just the way it was before. Correct.
Until you pass this resolution, if the amendment passes, it changes in 2022.
Right. So if this is passed, then there will be a tax increase in the second year of this budget. So we're no longer at 0% for 2 years.
True, but keep in mind, the council who is elected in October could choose to open the budget and make adjustments to get it to 0 next year. So there are always options and ways that councils can do this.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Morrow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the city treasurer. Without any amendments, and after the week that we spent last week, the end result was a tax reduction of 1.4 for 2021 and a tax increase of 1.4 for 2022. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, if we take the 1.4, what I'm sensing, and help me out here, because we have a tax decrease of 1.4%, that equates to, did you say that was $2.17 million?
Correct.
Okay, so technically, if we approve the budget as is, our community is going to be at a tax decrease of 1.4, which equates to the 2.17. So this, in my mind, is this attempting to take the 2.17 and direct it to what Councillor Croson is attempting to do?
I'm not sure that question's for me, Councillor Morrow.
Yeah, I'll answer that.
I'm trying to understand process more than anything. So we basically have a savings of $2.17 million if we stay with the desired minus 1.4, a reduction in taxes for 2021. Is that correct?
Mayor Spearman, through to Councillor Morrow. In our budget process, we try to provide the community with some stability and certainty about expectations of future tax impact. And so in the past, we've always done an average over the 4 years, or in this instance, potentially 2 years, to help to show some stability and certainty. If council wishes to approve a negative 1.4 in 2021 and a 1.4 in 2022, then that's up to City Council. But it would be our recommendation that we do, if this resolution wasn't to pass, that it would be an average of 0 over the 2 years.
Okay. So my question, where I'm thinking, and I guess I'll address it to you, City Treasurer, or to you, Councillor Croson. Because we have arrived at a minus 1.4 for 2021, there seems to be this thinking that we have $2.17 million that now we can grab. So, Councillor Croson, is that what you are attempting to do? Grab this 2.17, which we spent all week last week trying to save, and now you want to redirect that to what you've just talked about. Is that correct?
I am attempting to support my community in the best way I know how by ensuring that the marginalized and most vulnerable who are greatest affected by this pandemic are supported. That's what I'm attempting to do.
Councillor Croson, yeah, I understand that, but is the simply just yes or no? You were attempting to take the 2.17 savings and applying it to whatever you believe is the best for the community. Yes or no?
No, I'm attempting to take that savings and use it under the plan that we as council have approved, and have administration provide us a plan for how that money could best support our community.
And my final question to you, do you believe then that there's 9 of us on council? You've obviously identified where you figure the 2.1 should go. What if the other 8 of us have different thoughts or different thinking, that maybe that 2.1 could be directed somewhere else? Could that not be also happening?
Other amendments can always be brought forward. That's the process we have. I am using the KPMG report that we as council all have seen, who remind us that we are underfunding social programs at this point 4 times less per capita than Medicine Hat, and keep wondering why we have social issues. That's why I brought this forward.
We all understand that. My final question then, why did you not bring this resolution forward during budget week all last week?
Because quite honestly, I did not have time until this weekend to actually think of it.
Thank you. Joe.
Any further
Is
questions?
now exiting.
Okay, I see no further questions on the amendment. Debate.
I'll stay for closing.
Ryan, Councillor Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate the comments and even the logic of this resolution. I just don't think that I want to tie the hands or tell people where we're going to designate that money if there is a surplus or any savings, because I think there may be, just like it was stated earlier, there's 9 of us around the table that may decide that money should be used somewhere else. I personally, for example, I would like to see it go more towards policing.
Is now joining.
And I'm hoping maybe an amendment will come forward in the future for something like that. But I don't want to tie the hands of a council in regards to how to spend that money if there is a savings. So even though these programs are very worthy, and I know that they are underfunded, like numerous programs throughout the city of Lethbridge, but also a lot of these programs are provincially funded and are a provincial responsibility. So I think it's also, we have to be careful where we go in directing these funds, especially social programs, because we may be going beyond our mandate. So thank you.
Thank you. Acting Mayor Hagan?
Thank you very much. We do have an organization, CWSS, that is bringing forward different initiatives for us or different suggestions for council to look at when it comes to social programming. I think it's more important to hear from them. We haven't heard back from them, so to have an amount out there without having discussion with CWSS, I think is not right. Further to what Councillor Parker was saying, I would far rather see something like this go to policing, and that would be in a possible amendment coming forward. So with that, I will not be supporting this.
Okay. Does any other member of council wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you, Councillor Crowson, for taking the time over the weekend to review and reflect. I love the intent of this resolution. I think it's something that I could support, but I'm not sure that I can fully support at this time. I too understand that we are underfunding our social programs. We do have a lot of social issues in our community that need to be addressed. And I'm fully supportive of council tackling this. As I said, I'm a big fan of priority-based budgeting, and this should be a priority of council. However, as much as I love the intent of this, there's a bit of a cart before the horse in this for me. I'd like to have city council and city manager do the work and figure out how to best use dollars, but also identify how many dollars we need. Is 2.1 or 2.7, whatever it was, million enough? Is it too little? How are we going to address this going forward? I think this is excellent food for thought, and I think that we need to at least spend some time in the new year discussing this issue and building a proper plan. I think when I heard from the city treasurer is that there is still opportunities over the next 8-9 months for council to do this and perhaps reopen the 2022 budget as contemplated, because that's really where the dollars for this initiative could come from. So I really want to thank my colleague for bringing this forward.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you again, Councillor Crowson, for bringing this forward. Far be it for me to not support something that provides funding for social programs and housing initiatives, but I can't support this as it is. For the reasons that I stated earlier about the support from the city coming to fund new programs and new style programs. The other concern I have is that you talked about it being one time, which means it would have to be project-based because there would be no expectation that these were carried on. And those are, although the general public thinks those are great things, for a lot of organizations, depending on the service they provide, one time is not a great thing if you want to retain staff. And one time is not a great thing if you need longitudinal work that doesn't end after the funding year. I do support what you're saying here. I just cannot support this amendment as it is.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Councillor Crowson for being innovative and bringing forward this resolution. I'd like to see more clarity when it comes to what we would spend the funds on. It's a little vague for me today. And just saying that we would support social programs, housing initiatives, and the vulnerable for up to $2 million. I don't know if I can support it today, but I certainly am aware that we could be facing some significant challenges in the next few months. Our numbers in the province and across the city, certainly our most vulnerable people are possibly going to be affected more than others and don't have the programs to support them. If there was more definition to this and more thought into it, I think I could support it, but I don't know that I can support it today. But I will listen to your close very carefully, and that you may be able to change my mind. If no one else is going to speak, I'll ask Councillor Crowson to close on the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you all for your thoughts and your questions on this. But it is often said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If we continue to underfund social programs in this city, we can't be surprised that we have social issues in this city. And while this may not have been the right mechanism for my colleagues, we must, as a council, seriously look at the funding and where we are spending our money, because where we underfund is where the issues are. And so I hope my colleagues will support this. And with that, I'll call the question.
Okay, question has been called. I'm going to ask our city clerk to conduct the vote by roll call, please.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor.
Councillor Crowson.
In favor.
Councillor Morrow.
Opposed?
Councillor Parker.
Opposed.
Acting Mayor Hagan.
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Opposed?
Mayor Spearman.
Opposed?
Councillor Campbell.
Opposed.
Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
That's lost 6-3.
Okay, Councillor Hagan had an amendment.
Yes, that, are you ready? Okay, I'm just seeing this up on the screen here. That we allocate some of the savings that council has went through. So we're at a minus 1.4, and I'm going to need some help with this to the city treasurer. What $1 million of that equates to? Because I do want to make an amendment that the $1 million that is being removed from the police budget that is left with the police to be able to combat some of the concerns and stuff we have going forward. So of that minus 1.44 we're at now, I just need to get that number of what $1 million is.
Sorry, Councillor Hagan, can I just get some clarity? So you would propose that the savings of 1.17, which is what the 2021 amount is, that would be reduced by $1 million?
That's correct.
On a one-time basis to, okay.
On a one-time basis, thank you.
I just need two minutes or a minute.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, I should have had this into you, my apologies.
Mayor Spearman, do we want to take a small recess for Councillor Hagan to figure out what he's going to be proposing?
We can take a recess until 4 o'clock, 5 minutes.
Perfect, thank you.
And that funding
be allocated to the Lethbridge Police Service or to the police budget?
City Treasurer? Okay. Ms. Pinkston, do you have an answer regarding Acting Mayor Higgins' request for clarification? What would happen if we applied $1 million? How much, from 2021 to of those savings to the Police Commission, what would be the impact on taxation in 2021 and 2022?
Mayor Spearman, I was just trying to connect with Councillor Hagan on that break, but I wasn't able to connect with him. So I'm just requiring some additional clarification of what is being proposed in this resolution.
Okay. I
Just,
can actually, sorry.
sorry, Councillor Hagan, did you say something?
I did have a resolution that may make it much easier to understand than what I had in the pre-verbiage before. That City Council not accept the Finance Committee's recommendation to reduce the police budget by $1 million.
I'm just not sure if we want to bring up the interactive spreadsheet, Mr. Westerson, when you're done typing that out. Based on...
Wayne, did you have that in writing? Sorry, I'm sorry. Was that in writing, Ms. Pixon? Did you have that in writing, or was that
No, I just read it now. I'll need a seconder if that's the case.
I'll second it.
Okay. So the resolution has changed. So the amendment reads that City Council not accept the Finance Committee recommendation to reduce the police budget by $1 million. Moved by
I'm not sure.
Acting Mayor Hagan, seconded by Councillor Parker.
Can I ask a process question? Isn't this similar to one that was put forward earlier? We're just saying, don't vote against something that's already up there? Rather than...
I believe that one has been withdrawn and this one's been proposed for clarification. So we're putting, Councillor, or Acting Mayor Hagan has changed his proposed amendment. It now reads more simply. This is his intent, to avoid the $1 million reduction to the police budget.
Mayor Spearman, I'm not sure if we need to put A50 to A66 in there, or if that has anything to do with that resolution. I just, for as far as wording, I don't know if that has to be in there. If someone can maybe answer that.
I don't see it in the resolution. Am I missing something?
No, I'm just wondering, does A50 to A66 have to be in there, or is this enough? I guess I could ask the city treasurer if that A50 to A66 has to be somewhere in there, because those are the police resolutions that Finance Committee dealt with last week. Or is this enough to just be as it stands?
Acting Mayor Hagan, I don't think you need to reference the initiatives included in this resolution, because City Council's approval is on a lump sum basis for the police. So this would just be recommending that the previous resolution be reversed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, not needed. Okay, Councillor Hagan, would you like to open on your amendment?
Yes, I just, we've talked a lot about different social issues and stuff that we're having throughout our community, and I understand that that goes to a lot of different organizations to help with that. Currently, we're going through, as I'm sure everyone is very well aware, of a COVID-19 pandemic, whereas our police officers are getting exhausted with the work that they've got. They are working diligently to try to support our community. We have got multiple crimes happening throughout our community, as we've seen through some different Stats Canada reports. And I think at a time like this, it's not right to be reducing the police budget, and that we need to allocate that $1 million back from what Finance Committee is recommending.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Carlson's hand is up.
Okay, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Through you to, I'm guessing, City Manager, City Treasurer. We had quite a lengthy discussion around this during finance last week, but now we're in council, so forgive me if I'm plowing old ground. One of the reasons I voted originally for this reduction was because council had been fully funding the police budget for several years now, with several initiatives not fully implemented. And so there was a lot of talk around where did that savings go? Are the police carrying a surplus? I mean, we fully funded the CPOs, we fully funded other initiatives that weren't rolled out fully. And I get that there were challenges. We all understand that. But there should have been quite a lot of savings in not rolling out those initiatives. So do we have any idea what type of surplus the commission is carrying right now?
So I will ask our city treasurer to respond.
Mayor Spearman, through to Councillor Carlson. Sorry, I just have to bring this up. I didn't bring all of my documents with me here. And of course, I'm having a bit of technology issues. Just need a moment.
Perhaps while the city treasurer is finding that information for me, I could ask a second question, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to the mover. Councillor Hagan, you're on the police commission. The commission came back with several initiatives that they put forward for council's consideration. Is it your opinion that every single one of those, like a financial analyst, IT, every single one of those was necessary and could not be funded through the surpluses that we're finding out about shortly, hopefully?
The initiatives, as I indicated during budget deliberations last week, were not supported, but we were asked to go through the exercise. And so the exercise was asked, we came with the percentage reductions, but as you note, in each one of the A50 through A66, I think it's A50 to A66, yes, we're at the bottom, there is an impact with each and every one of them. So again, the exercise was asked to be completed, but, and Mayor Spearman, I'm sure you could also mention to this that it was not supported.
Mr. Mayor, it's Joe. Point of order, and I'd like to raise a question of privilege, please.
Okay, go ahead.
I really understand and appreciate what my two colleagues are trying to do here, but I have to say, when we had our budget meetings, Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, who ran the meetings, and I think we as the Finance Committee agreed that we would be able to, at the end of the process, revisit our decisions. If to my recollection, I think Deputy Mayor Miyashiro asked us that at the end, and there was no one. So with all due respect to my two colleagues, and I understand that what they both believe has merit, and I understand what they're fighting for has merit. But on the other hand, we can all be doing this right now, all 9 of us, because none of us are, I'm sure, very unanimously supportive of everything that was approved or not. We all have certain issues. So my point here is, I would like to table the budget. And the reason I'm suggesting that is because now the budget is out in the open. This will allow every member of council to come forward with any new initiatives, or sorry, not new initiatives, but changes to the budget as we're trying to do here on the fly. And I think, number one, with all due respect to my colleagues, it is disrespectful to the rest of council and pretty much disrespectful to the process. So I'm suggesting that the tabling motion, I don't know if that supersedes anything, but at the end of the day, whether it supersedes these 2 or not, I will be putting in a tabling motion so we prevent this from happening, and it allows any member of council to have feedback from the community and bring forth any other resolutions that they may want to change in the budget. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We still are waiting for some information from the Secretary Treasurer. Once we have that information, the intention is to continue with this amendment, but we'd be open to a tabling motion following that. So I'll ask our City Treasurer, do you have the information requested by Councillor Hagan?
I thought it was requested by Councillor Carlson, but I might
Okay,
be
Councillor Carlson, you're correct. You're correct. Sorry.
Okay, so in the September operating forecast, the police budget is proposing to come in at a balanced position. It's proposing to use some of the surplus from the unfilled positions related to their initiatives for some body-worn and in-camera cameras, as well as to carry over the training that was not able to take place in 2020 and to carry that over to 2021. So that's roughly a $500,000 surplus for 2020. In 2019, there was approximately a $500,000 surplus, which was returned to the city to assist in the one-time reduction of the tax budget, to reduce that to 0 on a one-time basis, to not increase the taxes to the 1.82 that was originally budgeted and approved. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Councillor Carlson.
So basically a $500,000 surplus in 2019, and a $500,000 surplus is projected for 2020, but the Lethbridge Police Services hopes to use that for body cameras and carry funds over to continue programs that weren't completed in 2020.
So there is a surplus in the police budget at the moment, because we've been fully funding initiatives that haven't been fully implemented, correct?
On Friday, got some information from police. Again, this is probably questions that they are better positioned to answer. But at that point, they had said that all of those vacant positions would be hired in January.
So Lethbridge Police Services intends to hire all vacant positions in January. Councillor Parker?
I was just in for debate, not a question.
Acting Mayor Hagan?
Thank you. So just a question for the city treasurer. 2019, there was it $500,000 that was given back, and council used that to reduce taxation to 0. So they did not use it for any of their initiatives. They actually gave it back to the city, and that was used to reduce taxation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Any further questions? Okay. Ryan, your hand's still up.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'm in for debate, so usually we leave our thing on there, but I'll take it off right now. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to debate now.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I think the process, not to be difficult, but I think my process or my suggestion of tabling, if I'm not mistaken, would supersede what we're following before we consider these other motions. So
okay.
Unless someone tells me differently, I would suggest that we table the budget until December, whatever our last meeting of the year is.
Okay, December 14th.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have a seconder for the tabling motion?
I'll second
Councillor
it.
Kaufman.
Councillor Kaufman?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, is there any debate? Okay, is there any debate on the tabling motion? Maybe Councillor Morrow?
I think I debated earlier, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Parker?
Well, thank you. And I think as Councillor Kaufman once stated, like, council has the opportunity through finance to, and it wasn't Councillor Kaufman, sorry, I'd like to give him credit, but we have the opportunity to revisit the budget, and we did it. And we went through the process. But usually after we go through a finance committee, we have an opportunity to take it back to the community to find out feedback regarding things that we were, well, positive feedback and negative feedback. And that's why when we come back and we vote on a final budget, that's when we bring our amendments forward, because after we've heard from the community in regards to what we're doing. And I understand some of the resolutions that have been brought forward. Example, I think Councillor Higgins, one in regards to policing, it was a close vote, 5-4. There may have been a lot of feedback over the weekend in regards to this decision. But I believe that the tabling motion makes even more sense, because then we have an opportunity to get feedback on all the initiatives that were brought forward, and then we can make a final decision on the 14th. So for that reason, I will support the tabling motion.
Okay. Acting Mayor Higgins?
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Morrow, for bringing this forward. I most definitely will support this. This is definitely the best way to become more transparent with the community, and I know that we've received a lot of questions over the weekend, and I'm sure there will be a lot this coming week, and we'll be able to bring them forward at our next council meeting. So I thank you for bringing that forward, and I will most definitely support this tabling motion.
Deputy Mayor Sherrill?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you for bringing this forward, Councillor Morrow, but there is no way I will support this. We just went through a week of debate about these. We've had the binders in our possession for 3 weeks now. This has been in the public realm for the same amount of time. If you haven't had questions about these initiatives, if you haven't had your questions answered by administration about these initiatives, then shame on you. Council's here to make decisions. Council's not here to, every decision we make has to go back to the public. So I suggest, councilors, my fellow councilors, take a deep breath, sit up straight in your chair, and get some steel in your spine. And don't postpone it, and let's make a decision today.
Councillor Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Just a question, if I can, because we didn't really discuss this fully in finance. Any implications on tabling? Is that an issue at all with timing, etc.?
I think we were told earlier, as long as it was passed this year, no problem. The proposal is to table until the next City Council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak on the tabling motion? See no one in the queue, I'll ask our city clerk to, okay, Councillor Morrow, do you wish to close?
Yes, thank you. I just want to remind all of you that, in my humble opinion, you don't need to sit up in your chair and straighten out your spine. You got to remember, we are elected by the community, and everything we do is hopefully reflective of what the community wants and what the community needs. We received this budget and we talked about the budget for 5 full days. And yes, it was a great process and we had lots of opportunity to debate and discuss and beat the crap out of each other for what we thought was necessary in this budget. But we approved it as Finance Committee at, I'm going to guess, 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Then comes Saturday and Sunday. I don't know about you, but after 5 days of 8 or 9 hours, and I'm sure others have put in many, many, many more hours than the rest of us that just got to come from 9 to 5 and talk. I'm sure none of us looked at our budget and went over it on Saturday and Sunday. And I'm sure none of us had the opportunity, especially with COVID, to go out and meet people and actually present them our budget and just try and get some feedback. So if you vote against this, in essence, what you are saying is to the community, don't worry, community, I got your back. I know what I'm doing. We don't need to listen to you. We were elected and we know what's going on and we're going to do what we think is best. I'm sorry, I look at it as an opposite way. And I may not have put this tabling resolution forward had we not had 2 members of council put some amendments in, which is going to cause more discussion, more debate. And I think, to be fair to my colleagues, that would and should open up the door for other members of council to keep putting amendment after amendment. Unfortunately, we didn't do this. We didn't do this Friday after 3, and we didn't do this Saturday when we were scheduled to continue our meeting. We ended it, and we wanted to get the heck out of there because we were all done with budget. Well, my suggestion is that you table this, support the tabling motion, do what you need to do to get out to the community, find out what the community needs, do your work, and if you have any amendments, bring them forward so that it gets on the agenda. You've got 2 weeks, and you all know the process. So if you don't support this, you're basically saying to the community, I don't care about what you have to say. Members of council, support the tabling resolution. Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask the city clerk to do a roll call vote. Thank you.
Councillor Crowson.
Opposed.
Councillor Morrow.
Favor.
Councillor Parker.
In favor.
Acting Mayor Hagan.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Opposed.
Mayor Spearman.
In favor.
Councillor Campbell.
Opposed.
Councillor Carlson.
Opposed.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor.
Carried 5-4.
Okay, the budget is postponed for 2 weeks. Okay, I'm going to pass the chair to Councillor Miyashiro.
All right, Mayor Spearman. Item 5.2, 2021-2022 Lethbridge Airport operating budget, moved by Mayor Spearman. Be resolved that council adopt the Lethbridge Airport budget for the operating years 2021 and 2022 as provided in attachment 1. Mayor Spearman.
Thank you. The airport budget makes up part of the overall budget. The details were provided last week. In order to pass the overall budget, we need to have this resolution also included. So it's here And if this resolution passes, it will become part of the overall operating budget.
Any questions? Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to ensure that we're all on the same page, this will have no impact on the budget that Finance Committee was proposing, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I see no. Oh, Councillor Morrow, do you have a question?
No, I don't. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. I see no more questions.
Call the question.
Question. Is there any opposed to this resolution? There are no one's opposed. That passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Move on to 5.3. I have a submission from Councillor Kaufman, direction from City Council on a potential amendment to section 14.6, mixed density residential R-M of the land use bylaw concerning the location of secondary suites re OBR January 27th, 2020. Further be it resolved that administration be directed to prepare an amendment to the land use bylaw to specify that when rezoning to R-M land use from any other land use, that preferred locations be first across from adjacent to parks, next corner lots, next parcels within 100 meters of low, medium, high density multifamily districts, across from or adjacent to commercial districts, parcels with lanes across from or adjacent to P-R and P-B, and not in negation of the merits of rezoning at other locations within the block. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Can I open it to questions first? And if that's acceptable, I'd like to ask one.
Okay. I have questions in the queue.
Thank
Councillor
you
Carlson.
to the.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Jeffrey wanted to ask his question first, so I'll hop out and I'll ask mine after him. Thank you.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. The city manager or designate, just for clarification on the description of the third bullet point, parcels within 100 meters of low, medium, high density multifamily districts. What I'm looking for clarification on here is if my neighbor's property is zoned multifamily, so it's got a duplex on it, then anything within 100 meters of that could also be zoned appropriately for RM.
Yeah, that's Councillor Kaufman. This is Mr. Hawkins. Yeah, the intention here is just to highlight the fact that this is specific. It puts a distance requirement in a residential neighborhood, and so there is some further guidance along with the other criteria that's established there for making sure that we optimize the locations of these. This has to be read in the context of residential neighborhood and in concert with the other bullets.
Thank you. Mr. Hawkins, if you or somebody else in the room could just provide me as to which multifamily districts those would apply to, that would certainly be appreciated. Are we still talking about other RMs? Are we talking about R50, things of that nature? I'm just trying to get clarification.
I think it's potentially the whole range of multifamily densities and land districts. As I understand the discussion at the Community Design Committee and with members of BUILD, there wasn't any specific distinction made with respect to that particular clause.
Okay, thank you. They're also not, I think is the term a priori, that they're not a succession list. They're all options, correct?
That's correct. And again,
okay,
the intention here too is to provide some further guidance within the land use bylaw to help administration and ultimately City Council in evaluating the merits of a particular rezoning application.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Through you to the mover or administration, perhaps. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet points, are these pretty much in response to what council at several of our public hearings and rezonings was concerned about and wanted to see put in the land use bylaw?
That is my understanding. Yeah, that's my understanding, Councillor Carlson.
Okay, thank you. We did send this, I believe, to CDC, which in our case isn't Center for Disease Control, is Community Design Committee. Do our members of CDC, was this discussed at any of your meetings?
It was discussed, and it was taken away by BUILD to discuss with their builder and developer group. These recommendations actually come from BUILD's recommendation paper that they sent in.
Thank you. Yes, I read that, and it looks like.
Can I answer?
Oh, thank you, Councillor Crowson.
In addition to BUILD, we had an ad hoc committee that also discussed this, that had city staff, myself, and members of the committee from the community. So this was discussed by quite a group.
Oh, excellent. So we did get the response from BUILD, which is what looks to be what's implemented here. Was the other group in concurrence? Like Councillor Crowson said, the wider group?
Well, this was a group that was a subcommittee under CDC, and this is essentially what was discussed.
And they were in concurrence with these recommendations?
Yes.
Thank you. And then the final bullet, which I think is the 6th bullet, means that other areas, and help me if I'm correct here or misquoting this or understanding this, the last bullet says that this is not written in stone, though. These are just preferred. But if there's a really good case to be made for another placement, council can look at that, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Thank you, Councillor Kaufman, for bringing this forward. And I just want a clarification on that as well. When we talk about preferred locations, those are locations that would lead to higher likelihood of being approved?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Kaufman?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. City Manager Designate, is this this also tends to relate to relatively new neighborhoods as well, correct? Usually if there's a request in an existing neighborhood, it's not necessarily from RL to RM, but it's usually a discretionary zoning request, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Spearman.
Okay, there's no further questions in the queue. Can we go on to debate? Councillor Kaufman, if you'd like to open.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. As members of council will recall, this has been an ongoing conversation throughout 2020. My thanks to Ms. Gehring and her group as well as CDC, BUILD, and everybody else that participated in this conversation. I think what the intent here is to get everybody to understand that there are some great places to be putting the RM suited dwellings. There are some optimal places for those. There are some other places that may be a challenge. What has been presented here, I think, is a very happy medium, helps everybody have a better understanding of what a neighborhood could look like. And the final bullet, of course, being sort of the catch-all, saying that you might actually find a neighborhood where there is a great opportunity to create this land use, this particular land use or land district, and somebody could actually take advantage of that. But we are going to be certainly sensitive to the first 5 bullet points, first and foremost, when people are making applications. So I would ask for members of council to support the proposed amendment.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Kaufman. I will fully support this. This is something we've been working on for several years. It also validates Councillor Kaufman and I's perception that actually wasn't reality. So now when we say this, we will actually be telling the truth. So thank you for that, Councillor Kaufman.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman, in full support. I just appreciate this because I think, yes, some of us had opinions that we thought were facts, and I think this will provide good guidance to developers, also good guidance to members of council as they hear these. So rather than making more arbitrary decisions, that we've laid out some very good specifications on what is preferred. So I really appreciate the work done. I will support this.
Okay. Councillor Parker.
Well, thank you very much. And I too want to thank Councillor Kaufman. I look at this resolution as a resolution of being proactive. It states objective things that are measurable, that give reason why certain things are allowed. And these 5 things are a pretty example of why you would allow certain things to happen. And if these things are there, it makes things a lot easier for not only the developer, but the city of Lethbridge to endorse. So I want to thank Councillor Kaufman for bringing this forward, and I will fully support this.
Okay, Councillor Kaufman, would you like to close?
Thank you to my colleagues. Again, the thanks really goes to staff for entertaining Councillor Miyashiro and I, for going out into the community, for talking to those that would be most affected by this, and for bringing back options that permit Councillor Miyashiro and I to present a revisionist history. And then from this day forward, we'll always be right on this matter. So I would ask my colleagues' support. Call the question.
Okay, question's been called. Are any members of council opposed? I hear none, so that is unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to 6.1. I have a resolution from Councillor Crowson, Lethbridge Land Revised Work Plan and Project Expenditures. From Councillor Crowson, be it resolved that the Lethbridge Land Revised 2020 to 2023 Work Plan and Project Expenditures be approved and implemented as presented on page 2 of the presentation. Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. So in May 2020, Council requested that Lethbridge Land provide an update on the work plan prior to work commencing for the 2021 construction year. That's what we have before us today. The work plan has been modified in light of current market conditions and because of things during the pandemic. Because of the current lot inventory and the speed of development, the work plan has been adjusted to slow down development. You will find on page 2 of the presentation a summary of changes. So you'll see all the changes highlighted there. I would just like to comment, because I found it particularly noteworthy. In the watermarks area and then on Great Bear Boulevard, there will be landscaping, Indigenous landscaping and interpretive walk. So good ideas are coming through, great ideas are coming through. And on pages 3 and 4, you'll see the amended financials. I'd like to thank Mr. Kelly, Ms. Slovak, and everyone in the department for this work, and I'll open it for questions.
Okay, are there any questions from council? There are none.
I'll open for debate then.
Okay, on to debate. Councillor Crowson has opened any debate from council. There is none. Councillor Crowson, if you'd like to close.
I'll call the question.
Question's been called. Is any member of council opposed? Okay, that is approved unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to 7.1. I have a resolution from Councillor Campbell, Advocacy Advisory Ad Hoc Committee. Whereas the City of Lethbridge believes there is a current need to establish an advocacy advisory ad hoc committee to coordinate advocacy efforts of the City of Lethbridge by developing and implementing an advocacy plan to ensure that the work of the City of Lethbridge is shared and communicated with partners and other levels of government. Now therefore be it resolved that City Council establish an advocacy advisory ad hoc committee on a temporary basis. And further, that the attached terms of reference of the Advocacy Advisory Ad Hoc Committee be approved. Can we change the name of this committee? And further, that Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, Councillor Campbell, and Councillor Kaufman be appointed to the committee. And further, that Deputy Mayor Miyashiro be appointed as the chair of the committee. Councillor Campbell.
I'll open it up for any questions my colleagues might have.
Councillor Crowson?
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. So in January, we're going into our new SPC model, and we have the governance SPC, which has advocacy as part of its role. So it is actually mandated to do advocacy. Did the 3 members of council who put this together consider making this a subcommittee of the governance SPC so that it actually feeds into the model that we're moving into in January?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. No.
Councillors Miyashiro and Campbell say yes. It's in the terms of reference that it does.
Okay. All right. That's my only concern, is that we're getting rid of committees and then start making committees. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I see none.
Sorry, Mayor Spearman, Carlson here.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Oh, this is an ad hoc committee, so it basically has a defined purpose and span. How quickly do we see this committee up and running and making some recommendations or informing council on proper advocacy plans? I'm only saying that because one of our main advocacy groups that we interact with would be other orders of government, specifically provincial and federal. We need to do some work, I'm guessing, around priorities before budgets are implemented in those orders of government. And so I'm wondering how speedily we'll see some results from this committee.
And who is your question directed to?
I guess the proposed members of the committee. I appreciate the 3 of them taking on the work, and I hate to put pressure on them. I'm just.
Councillor Carlson.
They have nothing to do over Christmas.
I'll answer that if you've done your question.
Sure,
yeah, okay. Councillor Miyashiro, or Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, would you like to answer that question?
Thank you, Mr. Spearman. Thank you, Councillor Carlson. So if you look at the duties and responsibilities in the terms of reference, there are a number of items that this committee needs to, or this ad hoc committee needs to look at and prioritize actually the actual actions in this, in the framework of the terms of reference. So that's the first thing that we do once this committee meets is we're going to take off chunks of this and decide how we're going to do it. This is the second step actually to formation of this committee. So for us to say to you today, well, yeah, we're going to have this all done by end of June. Well, I think that would be incorrect, an incorrect assumption.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And again, I appreciate the 3 proposed members taking on this responsibility.
Thank you. Acting Mayor Higgin.
I don't have a hand up, no.
Okay. Nothing? Okay. Move on to debate. Councillor Campbell, would you like to open?
If there's some debate, I'll take that first.
Okay. Any further debate? I see none. Councillor Campbell, would you like to close?
Sure. First of all, thanks to administration for providing the terms of reference for this advisory ad hoc committee meeting, and I think it's important for us to get together, and we will, to determine, we need to advocate the city's message, and we're going to find partners that we can talk to and create relationships with, hopefully getting a one big message out to the people that matter in the province. So I ask my colleagues for their support.
Okay, thank you. Is any member of council opposed?
Yes, I am, Joe.
Okay. I'll ask our city clerk then to take the vote by roll call. Thank you.
Councillor Morrow.
Opposed?
Councillor Parker.
In favor.
Acting Mayor Hagan.
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Favor.
Mayor Spearman.
In favor.
Councillor Campbell.
Favor.
Councillor Carlson.
In favor?
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor.
Councillor Croson.
In favor.
Carried 7-2.
Thank you. We'll move on to 7.2. I'm going to pass the chair to Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. This is an official business resolution, item 7.2, paying for EMS dispatch in Lethbridge, moved by Mayor Spearman. Whereas the provincial audit of Alberta Health Services by Ernst & Young identified $6 million in savings by consolidating regional satellite dispatch centers with existing provincial EMS dispatch centers operated by Alberta Health Services. And whereas the City of Lethbridge currently receives $1.2 million annually from Alberta Health Services to operate the Lethbridge Satellite Dispatch Center. And whereas ceasing to operate the Lethbridge EMS Satellite Dispatch Center will result in the separation of ambulance services and fire services in Lethbridge, and the City of Lethbridge will no longer be able to maintain integrated fire and EMS response with an additional cost to Lethbridge taxpayers of at least $3.7 million annually and possibly as much as $5.5 million. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor write to the Alberta Minister of Health and the Premier of Alberta offering to forego the $1.2 million annual payment from Alberta Health Services in order to retain EMS dispatch and maintain integrated fire and EMS response in the City of Lethbridge and avoid the added cost to Lethbridge municipal taxpayers. Mayor Spearman.
Thank you. This is the final piece of correspondence. The real ask is to the Premier to overturn the decisions to date. The rationale is clearly provided in the resolution that we would forego the $1.2 million that Alberta Health Services currently provides to operate the PSCC. So that's the dispatch center, and that would allow us to retain integrated fire and EMS in the City of Lethbridge. Our fire chief has said that operating parallel services in the future will be an added cost of at least $3.7 million and possibly as much as $5.5 million, as indicated in paragraph 3. So this is our final appeal. Other cities are writing a similar letter. We've written a joint letter with broader concerns, and each city was asked to provide a letter specific to their circumstances as well. So this would authorize the letter from the City of Lethbridge based on our specific circumstances, spending $1.2 million in order to save $3.7 million or more.
We have questions. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Spearman, for bringing this forward. I think it's very forward-thinking. It seems to me to be a win-win solution, or a win and not lose as much solution, I guess. The 1.2 million that we would be funding ourselves, did we leave that in the budget that we've just tabled? Is that still available to us, or would we have to open the budget?
No, we provided for it in the budget I'll ask our city treasurer to explain how it was provided.
Mayor Spearman, through to Councillor Carlson, it's currently funded on a one-time basis from the MRSR for 2021 and 2022.
Okay, thank you. So just to finish up, this wouldn't put any additional pressure on our 2021, 2022 budget, but if the province does accept this, in my mind, excellent solution, that would put a pressure on 2023 and ongoing.
That's correct.
Thank you. But this pressure would be much less than if we are saddled with the entire 3.7 to 5.5, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Kaufman?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The decision date is in January, is it not, to the mover?
Yes, I believe that the transition is in early January if this decision is not reversed, yeah.
Okay, thank you. To the treasurer, just to follow up on the previous questioner, if the province does not agree to doing this, then the 1.2 or the 2.4 over 2 years just stays in MRSR and would be allocated elsewhere, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Are there further questions from council regarding this resolution?
Deputy Mayor, yes, it's Joe.
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Morrow.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I know we've been battling this forever, and we know that the decision that the province made. So here's what I'm kind of thinking. I agree with what you're attempting to do, but we've been fighting them to hope that they will change their decision and let us keep our integrated system and our dispatch center. Why would we be showing our cards, because this is how I see it, and telling them that if you do what we've been fighting for all these years, you don't have to give us 1.2 million. I see that as kind of a, I don't know. I think if I heard Councillor Kaufman, if we wait till the decision is made, wouldn't it be better to do this after the fact, I guess is what I'm asking you.
The decision has already been made. What we're asking for is for the decision to be reversed. And this is the last Hail Mary.
But that's what I'm asking you, Mr. Mayor. If we are successful and they reverse the decision, we have now willingly given up $1.2 million. We're telling them if you reverse the decision, you can forego giving us the 1.2 million. Why would we do that now?
The last conversation that was had with the Premier by one of the other mayors, Premier Kenny's position was he wants the $6 million in savings. So if the cities give up the six, basically, if he achieves his $6 million, everybody's a winner.
But my understanding, Mr. Mayor, is that you and the other three mayors are still continuing to challenge this, and hopefully they are looking at this, and hopefully they may change their mind. Or is that totally out of the picture right now?
The mayors of Red Deer and Wood Buffalo are taking the same tack that's proposed in this resolution. They're prepared to pay for dispatch in their cities in order to keep it.
Okay, I'll hop out. Thank you.
So, I see Acting Mayor Higgin.
Thank you. Can someone please tell me what, if we waited till the decision is made, so we have certainty, could we not bring a resolution forward after? I'm just wondering the urgency right now, and that's, I guess, what I'm just trying to figure out is why the urgency now, and why couldn't we wait till the decision is made and deal with it at that time?
We've received a decision in writing from the Minister of Health, Minister Shandro. who said he has chosen not to reverse the AHS decision. And we're told that the last recourse is the Premier.
And you have not received anything from the Premier as of yet, correct?
We haven't made the formal request. So we sent a joint letter last Thursday, and the decision among the four mayors was to send individual letters this week representing our communities and each perspective.
Thank you.
There are further questions? I see none. Mayor Spearman, open debate.
This will simply conclude the process. We'll know within 5 weeks whether we were successful or not. And I would ask City Council to do this. The decision's been reversed 4 times previously. This is hopefully we would get it reversed this time, but certainly it's a long shot. I will admit that, but this is the final step, and we need to do this to have any chance of success. I would ask Council to support the resolution.
Okay, we have debate from Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Spearman, for bringing this forward. Thank you to the work you've done with your fellow mayors that this impacts, and the willingness for everyone to pitch in for what really is the betterment of our communities. I think this is innovative. It's the first time I've ever seen an attempt like this, and I applaud trying to be innovative and think outside of the box. I will be supporting this because in my mind, this is our Hail Mary pass. This is it. And if we have to give up a little to gain more and better for our community, I'm willing to take that step. So I'm in full support.
Is there further debate?
Yes, it's Joe.
Councillor Morrow.
Thank you. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to argue with your resolution, Mr. Mayor, and we all understand. I think the community totally understands what you and other mayors and what we're facing. And yeah, we don't like it, but you said a couple things there. This has been reversed 4 times. Yes, the minister has rejected it, and they're moving forward. But from my understanding, this is at the Premier's level right now. And you know what? I see this as we are offering $1.2 million or foregoing $1.2 million for the Premier to reverse his decision. I guess I'm thinking that rather than we do this now and willingly offer 1.2 million, I'm still got my fingers crossed, and I think that the work that you and the other mayors have done may actually, and I have hope, convince the Premier to continue doing what we're doing. So although I support this resolution, I guess I don't support the timing of it, and for that reason, I won't support it.
Acting Mayor Hagan.
Further what was just mentioned, I too I struggle with this, and I understand the time that has gone into this, and Mayor Spearman, how you've advocated for quite some time on this with your colleagues in the other cities. I'm in my mind, I would think that waiting till the decision's done, and then you could still go through this and look for a solution at that time. So I just think, again, the timing, I do like the resolution, but the timing to me is not right, and so I will not be supporting this.
Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will be supporting this. If the reason this decision is being made is a financial decision, then having a financial answer is the way to go. And I mean, to be blunt, when you're looking at something from a financial perspective, you have to have money to bring to the table, and that's what we're doing. This is being done in partnership with the other cities, and I think this is the best way to go on this, so I will be supporting it.
Thank you. I will support it as well because of all the reasons that my colleagues have stated. It is a creative, innovative way to deal with the possible loss of service, and we are working with other communities to do what we need to do, so I'm fully supportive of this resolution. I see no more debate. Mayor Spearman to close.
Yeah, I would urge council to support the resolution. The other cities are sending their letters tomorrow. We should send our letter tomorrow along with theirs, make our best case for Lethbridge along with the other cities. So I would ask for council's support.
Call the question by roll call, please.
Councillor Parker.
In favor.
Acting Mayor Higgin.
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Favor.
Mayor Spearman.
In favor.
Councillor Campbell.
In favor?
Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor?
Councillor Crowson.
In favor.
Councillor Morrow.
Opposed?
Carries 7-2.
Thank you. We'll move on to 7.3. I have a resolution from Deputy Mayor Miyashiro. Official business from in camera. Request for extension, option to purchase. Whereas in the midst of the COVID-19 global pandemic, businesses have experienced a variety of changes to project timelines. Therefore, be it resolved that the extension to the option to purchase of 3401 39th Street North for $3,789,825 to 2299172 Alberta Limited be approved. And further be it resolved that the terms of the option to purchase amend the closing date to January 29th, 2021. And further be it resolved that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to sign the agreement. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you very much, Mayor Spearman. This is a piece of land that was option to purchase a few years ago. And now, again, they want to amend the closing date to 2021. So if there's further questions, I'll take those now from council.
Are there any questions from council? I see none. We'll move on to debate.
Debate?
Any debate from council? I see none.
Call the question.
Question's been called. Are any members of council opposed?
Yes, Joe.
Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Acting Mayor Hagan.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Favor.
Mayor Spearman.
In favor?
Councillor Campbell.
In favor?
Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Councillor Councillor Kaufman.
In favor?
Councillor Crowson.
In favor.
Councillor Morrow.
Opposed?
Councillor Parker.
In favor.
Carries 8-1.
I have another resolution from Deputy Mayor Miyashiro, extension of the temporary mandatory face coverings bylaw. Whereas the temporary mandatory face covering bylaw 6239 came into effect on August the 24th, 2020, as the World Health Organization Chief Public Health Officer for Canada and the Chief Medical Officer of Health for Alberta identified face coverings in circumstances where physical distancing may not be possible as a way to reduce the risk of spreading COVID-19, which is present in the city of Lethbridge. And whereas the temporary mandatory face coverings bylaw 6239 is deemed to be no longer in effect after the first regularly scheduled meeting of council following December 31st, 2020, that being January the 12th, 2021, unless it's extended by council resolution. And whereas residents of Lethbridge have requested to provide information on the bylaw, and whereas council is desirous of providing an opportunity for residents to state their views, And whereas the new Standing Policy Committee structure recently adopted by Council allows for public input, now therefore be it resolved that Council invite written and oral submissions from its residents to the Community Safety Standing Policy Committee meeting of February the 11th, 2021, and further that the report of the Community Safety Standing Policy Committee be forwarded to the February 23rd, 2021 Council meeting, and further that Council extend the temporary mandatory face coverings bylaw until February the 23rd, 2021 to allow the above mentioned engagement to occur. Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Thank you very much, Mayor Spearman. I think this resolution hits a number of points that Council talked about when we initiated it, one of which is public input. As we voted down the public input process when we implemented this bylaw, well, we did say that we would revisit it. So this is a revisiting after several months of the bylaw in place. We want to invite people's input into why they think it's a good thing or why they think we should take a look at it again. We now have a process through our change of our policies and our organizations of council and our governance that we have a standing policy committee on community safety. One of the things that this committee can do is take public input. This fits very well. That committee will get up and running in January. We have a public input session in February. It comes back to council, and we decide on whether or not the temporary mandatory face covering bylaw is extended at that point after public input. Questions?
Are there questions from council? There are no questions. Councillor Higgin? Acting Mayor Higgin?
Thank you. So I appreciate the public input. I think that's important as we wanted to do that previously. But the very last cause, extending the temporary mandatory face coverings bylaw to February 23rd, would that not be discussed within this group prior to it coming to council anyway? So if we're to do that, I just don't understand the last clause there.
I can explain that, Acting Mayor Hagan. It would go to committee on February 11th, and that's when you'd hear from the public. And then that committee could make a recommendation to council on the February 23rd meeting. And that's where council would decide what they want to do going forward.
But currently we're asking to extend it because it would be it would be not in effect as of January 11th, correct? Or what was the first meeting in council? Sorry, I'm not seeing that on the page yet.
I believe it is January 11th, January 12th, because it's Tuesdays now. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why they're asking to extend it so that they can have this public input after the January 11th.
And could we not have the public input even if this was not extended? I guess that would be the question for the mover.
There were some dates that we looked at developing this, but in order for us to do this, that standing policy committee hasn't met yet. So you can't just have their first meeting as a public input meeting. They haven't developed actually even the terms of what that public input meeting would be like.
No, the reason I'm asking that is
that's the main reason. So that community safety policy committee, when they convene for the first time, can actually develop the process for the public input for this bylaw. Remember, we're starting this new governance model in January, and so
yes.
it threw things out of whack a bit because that committee doesn't meet till the third
January 14th.
Yeah, January 14th. So
yes, and I understand that, but Deputy Mayor, the question I have is if the mandatory mask bylaw did pass, which I think it did the job that it was supposed to do, and that was to educate the public. I think we still have this meeting to see if we actually put a bylaw in place again, and that's what I'm stating. But I'll talk about that in my debate. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions from council? I see none. We can move on to debate. Deputy Mayor, would you like to open?
I'll leave debate for council. I'll close.
Okay. Acting Mayor Hagan.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. I do like what is in here, and I do especially that the Standing Policy Committee structure recently adopted by council allows for public input. That's fantastic. And I know that the particular reason we had the mask bylaw to start was to educate people. And anywhere I've went throughout the community, I think that job has been done. There's a lot of people that are wearing this mask and are doing what has been asked from our Chief Medical Officer of Health. So I struggle with the part of putting in the temporary mandatory phase or extending this, this bylaw when we're going to be getting the input. And at that time, it's my advice that that's when we would ask if the public wants to have this bylaw. And so, yes, I do support going obviously for public input, but I think that's at the time where we can put that resolution forward. So for that reason, I will not support this.
Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Spearman. Appreciate the mover bringing this forward. I think it solves several issues in front of council, or that council will be heading into. First and foremost, I think it's going to be a good test of our new system, the new SPC structure. I think this will allow a good robust start to that process. So I appreciate that. I also do appreciate that now is not the time to be taking our foot off the gas in ways and means to protect members of our community. I see throughout the province, other communities are looking at tougher and tougher measures, not backing off. I think we're all pretty aware that we are, Alberta has the unfortunateness of being #1 in Canada. We do have the highest case counts every day. Again, today we set a new record, which is not a record to be proud of. We need to continue to protect our citizens. I think putting this this bylaw in place until we can actually go out and talk to the community and get some feedback, get some information from them, I think makes sense. We know that a vaccine is on the horizon, and we also know that it's not going to be widespread throughout our community, a vaccine that is, until much later in the spring. So I think this is important to act on, to show leadership, and to continue to protect our community, and I thank the mover for bringing it forward.
Does anyone else wish to debate? I will be in support of this motion. I think there has been more information since we originally passed our bylaw, and back then I think the community was more divided than they are now. It was about, if I remember, general polls were about 55% in favor, 45% opposed, and more recently, more than 80% of the population now supports masking, and given the rising numbers. So I think we need to continue to monitor that and take those changing factors into consideration, and again, make sure that as the situation continues to evolve, that we do the best that we can as a council to keep our community safe and keep our businesses open. So I will be supporting this resolution, and I'm hopeful that the new process the council has established will be successful in evaluating this issue. Thank you. Councillor Parker?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And can I make a motion to divide? I think there's two clauses in here. One, that we take this to public consultation, which I agree with, but the other one is in regards to extending the bylaw. So I'd like to make a motion to divide both.
Okay, do you have a seconder?
I'll second it.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Morrow. So, okay, and in terms of motion to divide, do we just vote on it? Are there any opposed to dividing the motion? The mover is opposed, so we vote on the motion to divide.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Opposed.
Mayor Spearman.
Opposed.
Councillor Campbell.
Opposed.
Councillor Carlson.
Opposed.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor.
Councillor Croson.
Opposed.
Councillor Morrow.
Favor.
Councillor Parker.
In favor.
Acting Mayor Hagan.
In favor.
That is lost 5-4.
Motion to divide is defeated. We'll back to debating the whole motion.
Thank you, Mr. Can I still debate, Mr. Mayor?
Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate this resolution, especially the first part. I think it's a really good idea, and I want to thank Deputy Mayor Miyashiro for bringing it forward. The sooner the better, that's for sure. I just believe that we allow the original bylaw to expire. We go by what Alberta Health has said. By voting against this doesn't mean you're against masks. It doesn't mean you're anti-COVID. It doesn't mean anything. All it means is I prefer us to follow the lead of Alberta Health. And Alberta Health has said right from the start and continues to say, I emphasize continues to say, is wash your hands, no social gatherings, and when you cannot have proper social distancing, please wear a mask. So I just want to follow the experts, and I always believe in being an expert, listening to experts. So I'm following what Alberta Health says, so I will not be supporting this resolution.
Anyone else wish to debate? I'll ask the mover to close.
We'll close. Call the question.
Question's been called. We'll do a vote by roll call, please.
Mayor Spearman.
In favor.
Councillor Campbell.
Favor.
Councillor Carlson.
In favor.
Councillor Kaufman.
In favor.
Councillor Croson.
In favor.
Councillor Morrow.
Opposed.
Councillor Parker.
Opposed.
Acting Mayor Hagan.
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Miyashiro.
Favor.
Carried 6-3.
Okay, we're on to inquiries, but there were no written inquiries per the new process, so we'll move on to council updates. Are there any council updates? If there are none, we'll move on to in-camera reports.
Mayor Spearman?
Yes.
So just a question on process. We tabled the budget for 2 weeks. I was just wondering if members of council had some time to think about that, and knowing the length of time it takes to do reconsidering motions and amendments and etc. Is there any desire to schedule between now and 2 weeks a finance committee meeting to work through that rather than leave that to the regular council meeting, which I don't think is a good use of time in my opinion.
Okay. So the question that's been posed by Councillor Carlson is, do we wish to have a special meeting to consider any amendments to the budget rather than the next City Council meeting? City Clerk?
Your Worship, the budget was postponed to the December 14th meeting of council. It wasn't referred to committee, so we'd have to reconsider that vote.
Okay, no worries. I just thought it may be a 15-hour meeting, but that's fine. Thank you.
We might have to start it at 8 a.m. Okay. All right. Next motion, please. Okay, next, in camera motions, I have a motion from Councillor Parker, COVID-19 relief requests. Be it resolved that Council direct that the closed meeting discussions and report with respect to COVID-19 relief request remain confidential pursuant to Section 16, harmful to business interests of a third party, 23, local public body confidences, 24, advice from officials, and 25, harmful to economic interests of a public body of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And further be it resolved that Council direct administration to advise the requester to exhaust all options. Councillor Parker?
I just called the question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, question's been called. All in favor? Are any opposed? That is unanimous. Next, I have a resolution from Councillor Morrow, closed meeting omnibus motion. Be it resolved that Council direct that the closed meeting discussions, reports, presentations, and documents with respect to boards, commissions, and committees matter, verbal, remain confidential pursuant to Section 17, disclosure harmful to personal privacy, 24, advice from officials, and 27, privilege legal of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And further be it resolved that Council direct administration to seek an additional legal opinion on Council's role and responsibility on this matter. Councillor Morrow?
Question?
Question's been called. All in favor? Are any opposed? That is unanimous. And I have a resolution from Councillor Parker, adjournment, that we do now adjourn the regular meeting of City Council until December the 14th, 2020. Councillor Parker?
Call the question. Everyone be safe.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.